I'm not. Okay, here we go.
Oh, hello, hello,
Hello.
hello. Oh, this is
Oh, I'm here now.
exciting.
Incredible.
Yes. Hello. Uh, Welcome,
Hi.
Dash Kwiatkowski.
Thank you. Hey, you said it. You didn't even have to ask me to write it out phonetically, and
Oh,
that's maybe a first in 34 years that I've been alive.
the,
Um,
it's a beautiful name.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's long in Polish, and it has brought me nothing but strife.
Oh gosh. Well, welcome to Dash Kwiatkowski, to our wonderful chatters. We have some of our chatters flooding in from all over the country at 9 in the
Hell yeah.
morning. Welcome.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm glad. I'm glad. Often glad for time differences. I'm very excited that I get to cruise in here at what is noon for me, because I got to tell you, 9 in the morning is a very different Dash. It's a much sleepier Dash. Um, Keiru Kobold, I just met this weekend at a furry convention called Euphoria that I was at. Had a lot of fun. They are very cool. They have a very adorable kobold fursuit. They got a very it is great. I love. Here's my thing. I love a furry convention. I love all the suits. I love when you see non. And this is not a slam to all the furries that are like, I'm a wolf, and it's like, that's great, and I love that for you. But sometimes you get a lot of variation that I love. The kobold suit, very cool. Like, had the mouth that opens, extremely cool. There was also, I don't know if you're familiar with the little white bat with the yellow nose that sleep in a leaf with a bunch of other bats. It's a
Oh.
species of bat. They're so cute. I'm sure the pictures go viral all the time. But there were two different people with fursuits of that bat species, a very rare species to ever see, like, as a fursuit, as your fursona. And there were two different people who showed up as this same, like, very deep cut pull for what your persona is, and they saw each other and they freaked out because they're like, "Oh my god, that's wild." That feels, I would even say, synchronous, honestly, because
Oh
it's not
yeah.
like a big furry convention either. I think this topped out at like 400 people or something.
Oh wow, what's a
But yeah,
standard
very.
size? What would be like a big convention size and a smaller convention size?
So big convention, probably like a couple thousand, probably a couple
Whew.
thousand. This is a smaller one. This is like the second time they've done this. This is in Albany, New York, and it was the second year of it. So having 400 people and like cool, successful dealers den, artist alley is very cool. It was nice to see.
Oh, that's awesome. Have you ever heard of the bat called Mormoots? Mormoots?
Mormoots, no, haven't heard of
Mormoots.
Mormoots.
It's a very cute. It's like a puffball, but it's a bat. It has wings and a
Okay.
little bat face, but it looks like a
Wait.
pussy willow.
Okay,
They're called
I love
Mormoots.
bats very
Yeah,
much.
adorable.
I'm a big fan. I just here's it is. I think we don't talk enough about. Yeah, okay, thank you, Kara. There were 15,000 people at
15,000.
Anthrocon this year, so like that's a big furry con.
Wow.
Um, I love a bat. We don't talk enough about how, like, absolutely. Hey, can we swear on the stream? What is the rules on Twitch? Can I swear?
Yes.
Can I say swears? Can I say
Yes.
cusses? Okay, it's fucking crazy
Oh my god.
that flight has evolved. It's crazy that flight has evolved so many times. You know, like, it seems flight is wild. Flight's a wild thing that anything can do, and the fact that insects did it and they do it a certain way, and pterosaurs did it and then they went extinct, so they're not even around, and then bats did it the same way that pterosaurs did it by stretching skin membrane over the evolved hand bone,
Mm.
and then birds do it in also a fully different way. All of these different things that are not really related to each other except at the, like, primordial level, all independently evolved to develop flight. That's nuts,
Oh my
right? Like,
god.
that's crazy to think about.
I would love to be able to have webbed fingers and be able to take flight
Yeah,
or glide or something like that.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Flying squirrels doing it. They got it. That's a different mammal learning to do it a different way. That's nuts.
Oh, there is no structure to this at all, but I want to share a dream with you really quickly.
Yeah, please. Yeah, no,
A
let's do it.
very
Yeah,
strong
no, of
dream.
course.
Oh, when I was having a lot of
Okay.
synchronicities in my life and like delving into paranormal stuff, I had a very vivid
Yeah.
dream that I was on like a black sandy beach. Have you ever played Death Stranding?
No, I
Or,
haven't
or are
played it.
familiar with like the aesthetics of the world of
I know about the mailman.
It's like just oily and gray skies
Okay.
and like a black ocean and very dramatic, very contrasting colors. And I looked to the side of me, and there was this gorgeous line of these like human-sized bats just standing upright, like along the beach. And they just
Cool.
looked at me and like not looked like flying
Yeah.
foxes about my size. And I looked down and I
Yeah.
was one of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
And it was this sense of
That
community.
wow.
And then I woke up. And
That's
yeah.
a very cool dream. I do not often have dreams where I fly. And this is gonna sound very stupid, but when I do, one consistent thing is that the way that I take off is the three jump from Mario, where he has the hat, and that's anytime I have flying. Yep, that's the one. That's the only way I can do it. And or unless sorry, it's that or I've got a Green Lantern ring. Those are the only two ways. But then when it's the Green Lantern one, I am constantly plagued by anxiety that I'm gonna not remember how to do it, and so it's a very like stops and goes, stops and goes, stops and goes flight.
Oh my God.
Um,
That is so like flight in dreams, it feels like comes from your knowledge that
mhm.
you are able to do it.
That you're able to do it.
And then
Yeah,
it's like, wait, but I'm a
yeah.
human or I'm a, and I
Mhm.
think that ties really into following and achieving your goals. Hey, Dash,
Yeah.
you're a
Hey, what's up?
showrunner.
Hi.
You've created something here.
Yeah. Hey, I didn't. I gotta. Nobody warns you that when you try to make a TV show that you're going to have all sorts of new responsibilities that you don't want to have to do. But
Oh.
you do have that, and I have that now. And I'm in charge of marketing. Did you know that? I wanted to. Here's what I wanted. I'll tell you right now. I wanted to be in front of a camera, talking at it, saying stuff, doing stuff. That was my goal. But then also someone's like, surprise! Now you got shit to do. So here's some of my shit to do. We have a show out. It's called Liminal. I'm so proud of it. I'm really, really proud of it. Someone asked me yesterday. They were like, "Oh, do you ever get like embarrassed asking people to engage with like media that you make?" And the answer is I don't, because I really believe in it. Especially like at least with this one. I'm sure I've made and done things that I do not feel that I cannot stand behind with my whole heart in the past. But this is the thing that I made. And I'm so proud of this. I'm really, really excited about it. The response has been really, really sweet. We have a bunch of people commenting on YouTube, just saying like that how much they love what we made. We're getting a lot of good responses on on Twitter.com and stuff like that. What's up, CJ?
Good morning, CJ.
Um, and yeah, I'm really proud of this. It's at oh, you've posted the links in the chat. The links are in the chat where they can be found. Um, and and yeah, I'm really proud of it, and we're trying to promote it. We are trying to both get people to check the show out who haven't checked it out yet, and also if people are interested and they like it and they like what we're doing, we are asking that people check out our Seed and Spark campaign. We are trying to raise funds for episode 2, which I'm so excited about. Last week we had a production meeting with Mortellus, who is going to be sort of like the focal point, to the figure sort of like profiled in episode 2, with the idea being episode 1, we're in the past, we're looking at America's like oldest ghost story, colonized America's oldest ghost story, sort of in the past. And so for episode 2, my goal is to be like, all right, what is practicing queer and trans paranormal practice, magic practice, what does it look like right now? So Mortellus is a necromancer. They're a best-selling author. They have a bunch of cool books out. They make spirit boards. They do a ton of death work. They lead a Gardnerian Wiccan coven. They're one of the coolest people I've ever met in my entire life. And so our episode 2, we're going to go and just spend a bunch of time with them and their practice and what they're getting up to. And we had a production meeting where we were just talking about some of the stuff we can do. And I'm so I'm not gonna say because I can't yet, but it's so cool and weird. It's all stuff that like I've never seen anyone do on a ghost show or any show. I'm really excited. There's a lot of things that we're planning that are just like cool, weird things that if I were not on the show, I'd be like, I need to watch this show
Yes.
because it's strange in like a very, very fun way. And
Now,
then on top of that, we have a whole. Oh, go ahead, please.
I was just going to ask. I hope this isn't a spoiler, but Mortellus is a necromancer and
Yes.
works with woods from coffins to make spirit boards.
work does use spirit boards from like coffin stuff that they legally and ethically obtain.
Yeah.
They just yeah.
That I heard you
I'm gonna
say
say
that.
I don't actually know the process behind it, but I assume we're gonna learn on the show. Yeah, they're just like doing cool stuff all the time,
Awesome.
and I'm excited to give our audience like a peek into some of that cool stuff. And selfishly, I'm excited to get a peek into that cool stuff. I'm excited to get there and just like learn what they're doing.
I
That's
think
gonna be really cool. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, that's a really exciting part about this process. I was taking a look at your Seed and Spark and just the plan that's laid out. Like what's happening in the immediate future, what you've got cooking up, in the through line of connecting all of
Yeah.
these adventures together is like really exciting, a really fertile energy. And
My goal is for us to shoot a 10-episode first season of this, with the focus of this first season being the rural American South, because I just feel like it's such a cool, weird, magical place. There's so many people I think on the coast who write off the South, who are just like, oh, it's like that's where all the bigots are. And I'm here to say the bigots are everywhere. Actually, I've been called slurs on the streets in New York probably more than anywhere else. And people are like, New York, leftist New York, it's blue, all that stuff. And it's like, sure, but also there's terrible people everywhere and there's cool people everywhere. And the reality of it is that the reason the South votes in the way that it does is because it has been very consciously and specifically gerrymandered to prevent marginalized people from voting in ways that represent their interests. Like, people are not able to vote because like they gerrymander the districts in such a way that they always get the same result. And like to blame people, I don't know, you also get this thing where people are like, oh, like just move out of the South, and it's like that, but it's cool there. It's cool there. There's so much cool stuff. We're gonna be spending a lot of time in the sort of the Appalachian region. Did you know that the Appalachian mountain range is older than bones? It is older than bones, and what I mean by that is the Appalachian mountain range has existed on this planet for longer than any life has had bones. Bones conceptually are younger than the Appalachian mountain range. That's cool. How could it not be? How could it not be full of crazy, weird magic, right? It is ancient. It is like
whoa.
cosmically ancient in a really spectacular way. So I love the region. I love the South. Also, the food rocks. The food is better than just about anywhere else. Um, and so, for this first season, I really want to spend 10 episodes in the American South. And then, but I mean, ideally, for me, um, season 2 expands even beyond. I would love to like go overseas. I would love to take it all over this country. I would like it to take it everywhere that I can. I think it is a dream of mine to have a creative project that feels fun and feels important, like letting me travel and see places and meet all sorts of weird people. And so that's the help we're asking for with our Seed and Spark. You can see the 10-episode season laid out as I plan to shoot it. And I just, it's hard asking for help, and so I try to, like, whenever I ask for help, I try to put it in terms where it's like something is coming from it. It's not just me saying, hey, and maybe this is not as community focused. Maybe I should just be okay asking for help.
Hmm.
CJ, we would love to come to Oklahoma sometime. Send me a list of spooky things in Oklahoma and let's figure it out. Um, I try to like have something in exchange. For the show, we're doing a live fundraiser event in 2 weeks, and
Oh.
here in Providence where I live, and people have said like, oh, just like hold a screening in your backyard and invite all your friends, and I'm like, I'm not gonna do that because I don't want to just be hitting up my friends for cash. But
Ah.
instead of that, and I'll say this is gonna be, I want to put on an event that's fun for strangers to come to, and
Hmm.
then that can be a fundraiser. So what we're doing, and I'll tell you because I think you're gonna like it. There's a really cool DIY space in Providence called Lost Bag, and they do music shows and poetry readings and all sorts of stuff there. So we are going to be live debuting the bonus episode we shot with Twin Peaks' Ray Wise. So that'll air at this live event, which I think people are going to be excited about. But then I will be leading all of the people in attendance on a magic ritual where we create a sort of guardian tulpa for the space, because it doesn't have one yet, as far as I know. And I think people are going to get really into like doing group magic.
I love that.
Yeah, but and yeah, I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be weird. And the idea is like if I'm gonna ask for money from people, because we all need money to exist. And right now, especially now when like, so much effort is going towards helping families get out of Gaza, so much, and all those are all things where like, if you ask me, gun to my head, hey, what should I put? If I have $5, should I give it to a Gazan family or your show? Gazan family every day. You know what I mean? If you have a limited amount of money, it should absolutely go towards helping people and take care of their families and exist, especially people who are the subject of, an ethnic cleansing and genocide. If you have $10 and $5, you have additional $5 on top of that, to, you know what I mean? But especially if people, money is, we all need it to survive, unfortunately. And if I'm going to be asking for it, I want to be giving people cool stuff in exchange. So like, check out the backer rewards on the Seed and Spark. We've got some very cool stuff. We've got, we do Polaroid, like we take a lot of Polaroids when we do paranormal investigation. Now we started doing that. So, and people can, at a certain reward level, they can have one of the Polaroids from whatever investigation we do on that episode. Like we'll sign it and we'll send it. We're going to do, there's a certain level where people can get a live tarot read from us filmed on location where we're shooting the episode. So like in the space, in the magic of the space, we're going to do tarot stuff.
That's a whole new level of
start.
That's a whole new level of community involving people's very intention and energy in the actual investigation that will become a part of the entire process. And
I'm so excited. Well, I mean, that's part of what I want. That's what I want is I want this to be a thing. And I've had this a little bit, and it was so cool. I did High Strangeness with Steve Berg.
Excellent interview.
Conversation. And one of the things that he said that like brought me so much joy is he was like, I watched your pilot and it made me change my weekend plans so I could go do Bigfoot hunting stuff. And that rocks. That's what I want. The premise of this show obviously is that queerness and transness are connected to the paranormal, and that like it calls to us and we called it in. That's a very sort of symbiotic relationship. And I would love for queer and trans people to see us doing what we're doing and feel emboldened to get out there and do paranormal investigation and talk to strange things in the woods and do their best. And also everyone else too. I want everyone to do it. I think it makes your life better regardless of your orientation, regardless of your gender identity. I think it makes your life cooler and more interesting if you go try to talk to strange things that you can't explain. And so, I want everyone to do it. And the fact that like Steve is doing it brought me so much joy to be like, that's being inspired by a thing that we made to go out and try to talk to Bigfoot. That rocks. That's so cool.
That was so sweet. Yes, exactly. And in that vein of this being open to like everybody, I was thinking about this while I was listening to your Steve Berg interview, and I was like driving and looking at mountains and clearing my head and stuff. But like a lot of people seem to have, and I'm going to get into some sort of paranormal TV questions, I guess.
Sure, yeah.
Where it's like, do you personally believe that it needs to be a scary, lights off haunted house scenario for you to communicate with something that's otherworldly?
Definitely not. And I would say even when I was learning the first time I was thinking about like, hey, I want to start doing this and maybe I could film it, because I did stand-up comedy for over a decade. I've performing and creating things and making things is very much sort of like, I think it's part of my way of processing the thing that I want to do. Like playing D&D is like, I could do a D&D podcast, like all this, like I remember, how do I make this a thing that I can engage with people on? So when I started trying to do paranormal stuff, as a like, how do I want to, because I don't want to just get out there and not know how to do any of it and start, right? I want to have some practice first. And so when we practiced, I remember we went out to Fort Wetherill, which is a military base near us that has been retaken by nature. It's really cool. It's really like, wow, the energy's wild. And we went there during the day. And we just started poking around and doing trying to Estes stuff, trying to do EVP stuff, just trying all of the different like methodologies I've seen on different programs, figuring out what feels comfortable, figuring out what sort of feels fun, because fun is so crucial for me in everything that I do. So no, I think you can do it during the daytime. And in fact, a lot of like, I think especially being a person who's really synchronicity focused, to start piling up and feeling meaningful when the sun is up, when the sun is down. I've said a lot of times that stand-up comedy should never happen while the sun is up, and that is what's different about it than than the paranormal investigation. That's kind of a joke about stand-up comedy. Mostly is my bad experience being. I'll tell you what they okay. Uh, Stand-up comedy is bad. No one should do it. It makes your life worse. That's mostly a joke.
I think some of my mods agree with that.
That's mostly a joke. I did love it. I loved it very much. The industry makes me very sad. That is why I quit.
Hmm.
Um, and part of it though is you do a lot of shows, especially when you're trying to make money and you're not a famous person. You do a lot of shows in places like casinos. And it feels gross because the whole reason you're there is that some terrible person did research at one point and they realized that if people leave a casino, they're gonna not come back and they're less likely to lose all their money. But if you give someone in a casino an hour and a half to 2 hours of a different activity, they recharge their batteries a little bit and then they keep gambling and they lose more money. Do you know what I mean? So if you give someone, say, a free stand-up comedy show and dinner, that person's going to watch that and then return to gambling instead of leaving the casino. So you're participating in something very bad when you do stand up at casinos, but also let's say you're moving from San Francisco to New York and you need to string a month of shows together to help yourself live and make the trip for when your car breaks down on your drive. You do casinos and like those shows always happen while the sun is up. Terrible. Shouldn't happen. And also like you're just doing jokes. I would you bomb hard, no laughs, no noise for upwards of an hour to the oldest people who have ever existed. And also they're so burned out from losing all of their money at the casino. And it's just like they're not having a good time and you're not having a good time. The you in here is me, by the way. I like and not even just not in a spiritual we are all one sense,
Right.
but I guess that too. Um but I did learn a trick, and this is great. And if you ever find yourself in a space where you have to bomb for an hour to old people, but you still have to make some money because stand up pays like shit, if you at the end of the show, if at the end of again bombing for 1 hour, if you get up and you say very earnestly, "Listen, I'm just a young person trying to follow my dream of making it in this world of stand-up comedy, and I have shirts for sale in the lobby," they'll all fucking buy a shirt. They all buy a shirt, and it's like
Oh.
they're not gonna wear it. Why are they? But it's like you remind them that they once had dreams, and then they pay for your windshield to be repaired when the big rock flies off the wheel of a large truck and destroys your windshield on your way to the next town.
Oh, I can't imagine such a specific scenario has ever happened for
It's
you.
just like off the top, off the
I
top of my
see.
head, that could happen, I guess.
I love that though. I think there's something so romantic about, and dare I say, this is gross. This is like the most NPR I've ever sounded in my life, but dare I say American about driving across the country, appealing to ages of all kinds. But
Tricking them into buying your T-shirt.
yes,
That is very American. I agree, actually.
well, that money aspect, you brought that up earlier, and it makes me think of Paranormal Investigation and traveling around. And there's this like romantic road aspect to it, but you're also like providing a service for people, but also how much do you market yourself and the connections there between stand-up touring and then like paranormal touring. Like, is there insight that you could share with us about these?
So I think the really interesting thing to me, because I have to divorce the idea of helping people in paranormal in the moment from the idea of we're making a television show or we're making product, right? Because part of it is, I never want to, and this is why we bill ourselves a very specific way. At no point am I saying like I'm gonna come into your house and I'm going to take care of your supernatural problem or whatever, because that's wild to me. And also, I do not think that I can do that. I do not think that that is a power that I have or an ability that is mine.
Honesty is the best policy, in my opinion, when it comes to that
Yeah,
sort of thing.
absolutely. And but it's very interesting. It's very interesting because, and in the same way that like and don't get me wrong, I love a cheesy tacky ghost show. I've said this a lot. I love a, jump scare, all the whatever. That's just not what I'm trying to make. And so I've said on a couple of people, I've talked to a couple of people. Jin, I am planning to come to Texas. If on the list of episodes we're planning to shoot, we definitely I would really like to spend a Texas episode. I would really love to find a cool like haunted brothel space. I would love to get into sex work and queerness in terms of how queer people have sort of especially survival sex work. I want to spend a lot of time highlighting queer sex workers. That's my plan for when we come to Texas. So we definitely have Texas on the radar. We're planning very much I don't know if it'll be the same spot as you because Texas is maybe the largest state. It's really big. I've driven across it a couple times. A nightmare to do because it's so long. It's so long to do. That said, I do love a lot of parts. San Antonio. If you're ever in San Antonio, you go to a gas station, you can get a styrofoam cup full of barbacoa and just some tortillas, and you can get Big Red, and you eat the barbacoa in the tortillas, and you drink the Big Red. It is amazing. I went to Texas. I was doing a little stand-up comedy tour with a friend, and we were staying with this friend of mine, and the friend's dad did not speak English, and he came into the room and like woke us up, and we're like, oh, like what's happening, we don't know what's going on. And he like woke us up, and he's like, come with me. And he brings us out to the living room to just show us this like little breakfast he's put together for us with tortillas and barbacoa and Big Red. And I was like, oh, it's a sweet thing. This is so good. This is so, because like if someone wakes you up and they're not able to communicate why they're waking you up, it's scary no matter what. I'm like, oh my god, like did I do something wrong? Did I like put something in the wrong spot? Like how have I messed up? No, just giving us breakfast. It was so nice. It was so sweet. But yeah, San Antonio rocks. Big fan of it. Yeah, so we are planning to come to Texas.
That's
But
awesome.
so I love a scary ghost show. I have so many recommendations of ghost shows where I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's not like I'm not trying to base any of my hard beliefs on it, but it's fun to watch, you know. But I'm not, we're not trying to make those. We're not trying to hide someone behind a door to slam it shut
Right.
because like that's not the content that I'm trying to make. And so I have this idea of like we're trying to be genuine, we're trying to be authentic, we're trying to be earnest. But at the same time, like it is shooting a TV show. So like sometimes I'll say something that feels good and meaningful, and our cinematographer would be like, hey, I need you to say that again because there was a reflection on something or whatever. And like I can say it again and it's real and it's not fiction, it's not written because it is the genuine thing, but then you were still behind this level of production. And so it's really, to me, it's very interesting to sort of exist in a yet another liminal space of like I am working on documentary rather than reality TV. I'm trying very hard to document things, and still it is a production, and still there are going to be things where it's like, hey, that was great. We're going to shoot it a different way so that the light looks better. We're going to shoot it a different way. So, like, obviously nothing is fictionalized, but it can't ever be just you in a room with a person because there is the camera, and the camera has requirements, and the camera has needs to sort of for aesthetic. You have to be considering aesthetic, you have to be considering all these things, and so it's just a very interesting space for me. So the idea of helping people, I don't know if we're helping people. I would like to think that the help comes to the people watching the show who are taking something from it.
Sure.
More so than anything else, but also like, and I will say this is we've got a bonus episode coming out in 2 weeks. We have an episode where we paranormal investigate with Twin Peaks' Ray Wise and his daughter Kaina, who is a sweet, sweet friend of mine. And, we're in Kaina's house where a friend of hers passed away. And so, talking to Kaina afterwards and just talking about how the process was for her and how it sort of, how processing some of the stuff that had happened through the lens of us doing that, we didn't come in to be like, we're busting the ghost of your friend.
Oh my God.
Insane. Of course we wouldn't do that. But it was, as a method of processing hurt and processing pain, kind of at the end of it, was like, hey, that was nice. Like this feels, and now that now we have the early sort of version of it, I was able to show kind of to be like, hey, do you feel good about this? This is a thing about you, and it's very deep and it's very sort of real. And so, I think that there are ways that like a person can be helped, but I never want to make that promise or set out with this idea of like I'm gonna fix something for someone.
Yeah, I think there can, because of media representation, movies like The Exorcist or something, or Ghostbusters or something like that, where it's this idea of like, I'm going to come in this, what was once a comedic idea or a very dramatic idea, and provide that, like, do your spiritual plumbing or whatever. And so much of that can come from the self, like the resident of the house, the people who inhabit that space and frequent that place. So that's really wonderful that you get, or you had that discussion with Kaina about closure, I'm imagining, or I don't want to project, but like, I think, do you ever feel like the phenomenon of paranormal investigation is just a symptom of like a culture not having a great shared belief system in place on how to deal with death?
I think that's part of it. I think that is part of it. Did something happen?
Sorry, I forgot to turn off the video alerts, but they're good. It was
Oh.
perfect.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Let them be alerted.
Yeah.
I think that that's part of it. I think I think that there is not to get political on your stream. I think that
Please do if
it's
you want
no, I
to.
know it was a joke.
It's
I don't know how to live
inherent.
and not do it.
Yeah.
Twas a jokey joke for me, a person who, again, the only two things. This is an aside. The only two things I'm doing with my life right now are organizing for Palestine and trying to sell a ghost show or trying to make a ghost show. So for sure, I do not know how to exist, and the ghost show is about being trans. So I don't know how to exist in a way that it's not perceived as political. It does not necessarily feel political to me. It feels like just basic human rights stuff. But I understand that words have meaning.
Right.
Okay. Um, I think that the way people in this country specifically deal with ghosts in the fictional sense, in the sort of the ghost show sense, and sort of the ghost busting sense, has a lot to do with not wanting to feel guilty about the land on which we live. I think that it is easier to watch a movie like Poltergeist, where an evil spirit of is coming to threaten this nice white family that didn't do anything wrong. They're just living in a space, and who knows what happened? Who knows the people whose land had to be taken and the people who have been murdered and genocided and pushed onto small reservations in this country. But people don't want to feel guilty about these things. People don't want to feel guilty about the graves that they are literally standing on. People don't want to feel. They want to have this idea that, well, I didn't do it. I didn't specifically do it. This is the same argument you hear when people fight against the idea of reparations to descendants of enslaved people. People don't want to feel like it is their responsibility, even though the fact that all of these things happen is why they get to live comfortably now. They get to live in a space, and so many people would say, well, I'm not comfortable, I'm poor, I'm whatever, and like, that's true, but your life could be worse than it is now if not for all of the blood that is soaked into the soil that we live on. And so when you look at a lot of ghost fiction, when you look at a lot of ghost shows, it's this idea, again, it's always a nice white family. It's always a nice, sweet white family who never did anything wrong, and they are victims of a vengeful ghost or a ghost that it's not fair that the ghost is angry at them. It's not fair that all these things are happening to them because they didn't do anything wrong. They just moved here. They just got here. And I think that there is a really I think that that narrative resonates so much with people who live on this stolen land that we all live on, because people don't want to feel responsible. People don't want to feel like there's something different that they should be doing. People don't want to look into land back. People want to be able to have their Thanksgiving and celebrate genocide on the genocide holiday because that's the only time they get to see their family. Go see your family a different day. You are allowed. You can do that. There are many holidays, but people do not want to sacrifice their comfort for an acknowledgement that maybe there's more that they can be doing. And I think you see this with a lot of centrist liberals where they are like, I'm as left as they come. I am a supporter. Look at the sign in my yard. It says, in this house, we believe love is love, or whatever. And also, I love cops, but people don't want to think, people don't want to change a thing. And it's not, it's grander political ideals, and it's even smaller case things. People don't want to be confronted with the cognitive dissonance that they exist in. I met a person, I had a really sweet conversation with someone on a train. My first ever Amtrak. I rode Amtrak for the first time. Very exciting. I was going to hang out with a cute person who had been flirting with me on Instagram in New York. It was a very Aries season moment where I was like, I could just come to New York for a couple of days to hang out with this person who's been flirting with me on Instagram. That's not crazy. But I had never ridden the Amtrak before. And I was walking down the Amtrak because everyone was walking, but I didn't know that I was supposed to find an empty seat and sit in it. I was just walking because I'm a herd animal. And I was like, whatever, everyone's walking. And then I saw that everyone has sat down, and I was like, oh, I have to sit next to someone. I don't get my own seat now because I did a bad job on the thing. And so I sit next to this person, and we're mostly just minding our own business. And then eventually I have to say, like, hey, can you unplug your computer charger so I can plug my phone in? And she does that, and I'm like, I'm sorry, it's my first Amtrak. And she's like, oh, where are you going? I was like, this is so crazy. I was like, I'm going to New York to hang out with this cute person who's been flirting with me on Instagram. And we just start talking, and she's like, I could never do that. I work in finance. It's really boring. I don't want to do it, but my dad made me do it. And she starts getting into just like family stuff,
Whoa.
family trauma. But then at some point, I'm like, I actually relate to a lot of this family trauma. And so, and this is me, I'll talk to anybody, I don't give a shit. And so I'm just like, yeah, hey, you should like set boundaries with your dad. And she's like, I try to set boundaries with my dad, but when I do, my mom and my brother and my sister, they all tell me that I'm wrong. And I'm like, well, they're telling you they're wrong because they also should set boundaries with your dad. But
Mm.
that's harder. That's a harder change for them to make. So instead of wanting to reevaluate the way that they're existing that is causing them harm, it's easier to point to you, the outlier, who's doing the thing and say, actually, you're wrong. None of us are wrong.
Oh my
But it's the
God.
same thing, right? That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Like that's the cognitive, that's the centrist liberal thing. That's the not all cops. That's the all of these things because they don't want to think about, well, if something is bad and I'm not doing anything to fix it, does that make me bad?
Right.
Right? It's this
Complicit.
thing that they don't exactly, and they don't
Yeah.
want to think about that. So they'll just be like, actually, you're an extremist. You're an extremist leftist, and I'm right, and you're just crazy. And then, so they want to
Pushing you to be an outlier and some
exactly.
scapegoat, and yeah.
And so I think that is where a lot of the sort of the way that we conceptualize ghosts has a lot to do with not wanting to process the guilt of saying, this is stolen land. What am I doing about it? What am I doing to make the system better?
Hmm.
What am I doing in my personal life to make the system better? And I think part of that, and I talked about this on Steve's podcast too, is that none of us can do it on our own. None of us can do it individually. There is no Luke Skywalker. There's
Right.
no, sole person who is the hero to fix it. We have to band together. We have to work in groups. We have to, find your local mutual aid. There is one. You've got a local mutual aid in your city, and there are people who ask that mutual aid for help when they can't make rent or they can't get food, and you can put $10 into a mutual aid. You can put $20 in. There are so many ways that we can be reaching out to people that we don't even know and taking what is no community and building community, and that's the only way that we're going to get through any of this, I think.
Yes, absolutely. I think you touched on like I think there's a level of integrity that is assumed, but in reality ignored about a lot of people's what practicing what they preach and having
Absolutely.
cognitive dissonance when it comes to like well, I identify as this nationally, but like, do I believe in
Yeah.
a nation? Do I believe in
Yeah.
these systemic things that really can divide people from creating community? And I think inevitably we're going to. I don't want to get too like woo, but like I believe in densities of
Yeah, you don't
consciousness,
want
I
to get
guess.
too woo. Don't want to get too woo on the on the magic live stream.
Exactly. Yeah. Like so as we shift into this next density of consciousness where we're a little more aware of
Yeah.
community and more aware of subtle realms, I think there are these bursts that are like kind of reminding us to have integrity about ourselves
Yeah.
as stewards of the planet, as human beings who have
Absolutely.
relationships with each other and what that means for our relationship with the planet, like how well we get along and how well we can take care of our like cosmic mother, if you will. And
Absolutely.
so I think sometimes like when that goes unaddressed, like that shift into I just keep using the word integrity, I guess. That's been big for me lately. But these
Yeah.
sometimes there are flare-ups that remind us like, hey,
Totally.
there's stuff going on here that we can tap into and learn from and grow with. But we gotta be able to be brave enough to transition through a lot of these
Totally.
things that were baggage that we're holding on to.
And
Yeah.
we also have to be okay being wrong. And I think that's
Oh,
so crucial. I have better opinions now than I had a year ago, and I accept that. And I have better opinions now than I had 10 years ago. And I think there's a real fear about like it's hard to say I was wrong. I've watched people as this, as Israel has committed this genocide against Palestine. I've watched people dirty delete some of their posts that were happening early on. I've watched people pretend that they did not make statements in favor of
ah,
genocide, and I haven't seen any of those people come out and be like, "Hey, I am a victim of propaganda. I have
ah,
I I have been taught something by the entire machine of this nation we live in is designed to further military propaganda. It's designed to make you think that to think that all the countries that we have to spend millions of dollars is setting up elaborate coups to stop socialism from taking over. That's the bad guy. We're so
right.
designed to think that our specific interests align with the imperialist war machine interests. And it's okay to say, I was raised in this country, I've been propagandized to. All of my internalized racism, I am an Asian person, and I would never pretend not to have internalized anti-Asian racism, both from my white dad and all the crazy stuff that he said, but also culture and all the culture and movies and films and all the things that I've existed in. I'm a queer trans person. I have internalized queer phobia, internalized transphobia, because it would be impossible not to, being brought up in this culture where it is so omnipresent.
Ah,
And it's okay to say, my thoughts are growing, my opinions are growing, I am learning, I'm being confronted with new information, and I am digesting it, and I am making it a part of my consciousness, because I am a person that values being better today than I was yesterday, and
yes.
understanding that I will be better tomorrow than I am today. This idea that I'm good, actually. I'm good. This was a therapy breakthrough that I had.
Yes.
This is a therapy breakthrough that I had where I was like, where I was like, I struggle as a person I was raised by aggressive, paranoid, maladaptive people. That's who I was raised by, and that's who I was for a lot of my life, because that's what I was taught to be. And when you're aggressive and when you're reactive, I have been mean. I have been mean to people in my early life, and I regret being mean to people. And I was talking to my therapist that I had, who was great. I had done this like low income therapy, and I was like, it would be cool to have a person who is trans. It would be cool to have a person who's like first generation Asian. They gave me a cisgender white woman, but she was cool actually. So
Oh,
don't worry
wonderful.
about it. She was chill. Actually, I reminds me I have to email her. She asked me to email her when the show came out. She's not my therapist any longer. There's like when I moved across state, it's a whole thing.
Oh.
Anyway, and I told her I have this struggle that I don't know if I can ever call myself a good person, because I have hurt people in my life. People are hurt because of actions that I've done. I don't know if I can ever call myself a good person. And the breakthrough is that nobody is a good person. Good person is not a state that you exist in. People do things, and you can do things that are good, you can do things that you're proud of. I am faced with an infinite number of choices each day, each week, and I try to make choices that I am proud of and that I will be proud of now. I try to create good around me, but the goal of being a good person I have had to let go of, because I truly, in the same way, like healthy, what is healthy? No one's just healthy. You try to make choices, you will make some choices that are good for your body, you'll make some choices that are not good for your body. Ultimately, you just have to exist. And I think it's the same thing. I don't think anyone is a good person. I think you want to aim to be someone who more consistently than not creates good and creates good change.
Oh,
Is my
I love that. Yes. We have a lot of free will, I guess, and through that we can
I plan,
exercise.
Danny. It's they them are my pronouns. Thank you for asking.
Yes.
I'll say I've been in the pronoun soup recently. I've been in the pronoun soup just because, like, here's my whole thing.
Yeah.
They, them. It's not that they, them feels good. It's not that they, them feels good. It's that they, them feels the least bad of the three pronouns that anybody will bother to learn.
God,
You know what I
yes.
mean? It's not that I feel when someone they, them's me, I'm not like, ah, yes, my gender. My gender. It's like, all right, thank you for using the least bad of the three for me
Yeah.
and what I am. So yeah, I don't know. I love the idea of neo pronouns, but I also, like, I have people that I've known in my life who I care for very much who still get they them wrong, and so, like, I don't want to add a new thing and be more disappointed in more people. Is the
Yeah.
functional of it? I don't know. I think the more I think about my gender, I was telling someone the other day, I think my gender is just like fairy stuff, and whatever that means to you, that's what it means. You know,
Yeah.
that's sort of where I am existing in this moment.
Yeah. That's
Having a Sookie
extremely.
Stackhouse time of my life.
A Sookie Stackhouse from True Blood?
Sookie Stackhouse, the protagonist of True Blood. Yeah. Do you remember how in True Blood Sookie Stackhouse was descended? Hey, spoilers for True Blood. Do you remember how in?
I watched
Sorry,
True
chat,
Blood.
if you were planning on watching True Blood now, in the year of our Lord 2024, this sort of ties into I found sort of magic for me ties in a really weird way to people who are trying to kiss me and people I'm trying to kiss is a lot
Ah,
of where, like, weird big magic synchronicity stuff happens for me. And so I've been calling it a Sookie Stackhouse moment because I sort of jokingly say that I am of the Fae and descended from Fae at some point in history. It's a joke. I don't actually think that I'm a child of Dionysus. I joke about it a little bit. It's fun.
That was an
I don't.
aspect of her character. Yeah.
Yeah, the fairy stuff, not she bumped up against Dionysus stuff, but the fairy stuff for sure. But I've there's a lot of people who are otherwise not really interested in sleeping with anyone, and then for whatever reason they'll meet me and be like, you though. And so and then a lot of times like that will lead to like weird magic stuff, and so I'm
Heard.
sort of more accepting that something about the way that magic interfaces with me and like around me is to do with like flirting and romance and people trying to bang. And so I've been sort of joking that I'm having I'm sort of figuring out fairy stuff in a very Sookie Stackhouse kind of way. I also keep sleeping with people who are like very vampire coded in any number of ways. It's a whole thing.
That's
It's like
fun.
it's a whole thing.
That's exciting.
It's fun.
Okay, so in this vein, so you talked about synchronicity a bit earlier.
Yeah.
I just want to read CJ's comment a bit. Oh, Cloud and Cloud are super sexy cousins and roommates. So are you familiar at all with the notion of like green light synchronicity and red light synchronicity? Not to like put it into a dichotomy, but just as descriptors. Yeah. Like sometimes I feel like and I learned this from a channeler. Sometimes we encounter a synchronicity that feels like yes, keep going in this direction. And other times we encounter synchronicities that are like, hey, great, maybe go this way, or maybe not here yet.
Totally.
You know, like something will line up.
I mean, that's the end of the pilot. That's the end of the pilot.
Yeah.
In the pilot episode, we are, spoilers for the pilot, but we are confronted with something from nature, something from the natural world, that is very magical and very spooky and very much a sign of like, hey, turn this around, and this is not where you're supposed to be right now. In hindsight, I feel very much like this was a friendly guiding force. As much as it was scary in the moment, my read on it, my understanding of it, is that we were being sort of in the same way that when a kid reaches for like a oven burner and you're like, oh ho ho ho, don't do that right now. Like that's a scary thing. That is scary. You're gonna get hurt. That's what it felt like to me. Our experience in the woods at the end of the pilit episode.
It's exciting.
Now available to watch on YouTube.
It's very exciting. I'll put that.
Yeah, it was scary as hell. It was scary as hell. That happening, being 45 minutes away from the nearest hospital, definitely was not in the moment a very exciting thing. But in now looking back, I'm like, that's incredible. I'm so glad that we had this experience. I'm so glad that we were there for that and we experienced that magic.
Yeah, that was such a beautiful part, because I think, and this ties into my next question. Like the element of fear being a guest along with the investigation, and how, first of all, whenever I watch a ghost show and I'm sitting in my armchair, upon my kingdom castle, my high horse kingdom castle.
Kingdom castle you watch ghost shows from.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, oh, I wouldn't be scared, or I would be so confident, and I would know exactly what to do in X or Y situation. And how much is that true when you're actually out there, like investigating in the field, in terms of fear Yeah.
I think that the fight or flight definitely activates for sure. I think there's two moments in the pilot where I personally experience a lot of fear. And the first one happens during our first Estes method, where I experience like the full body dread, as I feel like we're sort of engaging with one very specific entity that feels very human. It feels like a very like the spirit of a human man is what my intuition told me we were dealing with. That's what it felt like to me. That moment I experienced a lot of fear, and I also had this like, I am okay in this moment, and I came here to talk to ghosts and the paranormal and things that have the potential to be scary, and I am going to stay in this. I had some instincts to be like, take these headphones off, get out of this room, because this sucks right now. But I also had this, and this goes a little bit to the like, we're making a show right now and this is what we're trying to do, so I'm going to sit in here and I'm going to do it. And so like that sort of ties even into the like the production element of it, that stops it from necessarily being an immediately in the moment genuine thing, as much as I want it to be as genuine as possible. But that fear felt very like I can sit through this. I'm gonna be okay. I'm physically gonna be okay. I'm spiritually gonna be okay.
Mm.
And this is people, people love to fight me on this one, and go for it if you feel like it. Not you. I mean, you can if you want.
I love to
Anybody can
fight
fight me on this.
people.
I don't think that you can get a negative attachment just from being in a place or talking to a thing. I think that you have to invite
Ah,
curses and negative attachments and negativity into your life, and I don't think you have to explicitly say I am invite whatever. I think that the way that you are existing, and this sounds a little bit victim blamey, and I do not mean it like that. I think that we can be very low at points in our life, and it's easier to just not really have our defenses up. That said, I think that a lot of paranormal TV is premised on this idea that you're going to pick up a spooky puzzle box and now you're dealing with a negative attachment and you need to bring in an exorcist who dresses like a line chef or a professional bowler to fix your shit. And I just don't think that that is true about the paranormal. And early on when I was doing investigation stuff, every time I would do this thing where I would say, we're doing this and nothing is allowed or invited to come home with us when we're done with this investigation. I would say all of these things that almost feel like legal jargon boilerplate stuff, as if that is somehow binding.
ah,
And now in my life, I have a lot more trust in my sense of energy. I have a lot more trust in the things that we're talking to, and sort of everything. And I feel like if you are approaching something with respect and curiosity and a sort of a good feeling in yourself, like if you're having a real depressy bad time, probably don't go try to talk to ghosts anyway in that
hmm.
moment. Probably do some other stuff that takes care of yourself in a specific kind of way. All that said, I was afraid, but I did not fear for my safety. I was feeling dread in that moment, but I wasn't like, I'm going to be changed for the worse from this experience. And so I stayed in it, and I was like, "This is we are here."
Yeah,
I At the end though with the snakes, I was like, "We got to get out of here! Like we gotta get out of here! This is actually dangerous."
yeah. It was almost like that's your. It's like a red light at the end of a set, or so.
Yeah,
It's like that's your
totally,
time.
totally.
Yeah,
Got two questions.
yeah,
Jan is asking, "Do I think another person can cause an attachment to a person that just happens to live in the same house as their negativity?" You know, I go back and forth on this. I think that if you are living in close proximity to a person who you are dealing with a lot, I think that your energy is very sort of entangled and entwined, and I think you definitely can sort of like catch strays and catch splash sort of energy from people, because like if you're living with the sort of person who is going to sort of do that or try to put that on you, like you're already so entangled. It's very hard. I mean, I say this. I'm no contact with my parents. I'm no contact with my parents. I do not like the sort of the way that I engage with these people when I have engaged with them. I'm a person. I don't like to yell. I'm not a person who likes yelling. I get very uncomfortable raising my voice. If you put me on the phone with my mother within 20 minutes, we will both be screaming.
hmm.
And that's as much as I don't want to be that person. I don't want to exist like that. There's so many ways that we are affected by the energy of the people around us. So, not I don't think that that counts as like a hard like inviting in, but I think that you're sort of the energy is already in, the energy is already with you. So the idea of like a person who lives in the space causing negativity that you are experiencing, I think that's definitely possible. But I think a lot of that comes down to like whatever the relationship, whatever that negative sort of relationship with the living human person as sort of the source of that negative energy. And then CJ wants to know if I pregame by upping my medical defenses or slapping on some ghost magnet perfume. I haven't figured out what perfumes they like just yet. I'll bring fun little crystals. I'll bring, but that's also just like I love going to a shop that sells crystals when I land in a town. Less because I'm like I need defense, and more because I'm like this is fun. It's
Yeah,
fun to have a little trinket. It's fun to have a little trinket that just comes with you all the time. That's great. I
and
love my little bell. I don't know if you saw my TikTok about that.
oh, the object, the object.
Yeah, the bell that just appeared in the object that just appeared in the middle of my floor. Very cool, very
Yeah, that's
spooky. That
amazing.
makes me feel safe. Makes
Yeah,
me feel lucky.
I
But I'm
think
not,
that
I'm not
fun
doing
that
it
you
because I'm like,
just.
if I don't wear this, a ghost is gonna get me.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I think having fun and lightening up, so to speak, can really be a great
Yeah,
defense mechanism. I
totally.
think.
I agree very much.
And I really liked what you touched on, because I do tend to think into Jin's question, like I and I love that you made the distinction that it's not victim blaming. It's just like sometimes there's a subconscious attraction going on, or a mutual agreement where it's like you can even say the legal boilerplate, as you said, like as you're exiting a space, but there's something in there that's like, I kind of want something to come home with me, and that might happen, and
Totally,
there might be a lesson to
totally.
learn from there and stuff. But yeah, in general, yeah, I agree with you 100%. Um, I has that ever happened? Have you ever? This feels like
Have any
a
sort of negative attachment?
or yeah, or
I don't
something.
think so.
Some maybe not negative necessarily.
I find I think that more often than not, when I find myself in a funk, I do not. I think when I find myself in a funk, I do not sort of ascribe it to like a thing that I've gone out and sort of bumped up against on accident. I think,
Yeah,
especially right now, as we're doing as best as we can to fight a lot of really catastrophic, terrible things. In climate change, in the rise of fascism, and again the ongoing genocide in Palestine. All sorts. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of good reasons to feel sad in this
yeah,
moment. And so, especially, but I mean, I just think there's a lot happening that it's like you got to give yourself that space to kind of feel bummed out. And this has been a big year for depressive swings for me. I've definitely had a lot of moments of just being like, I am not really capable of much in this moment, and I kind of just got to give that space. And so I think that, as a person who has dealt with a lot of sort of a lot of mental health stuff, I think that I understand. I understand the impulse to be like, this is because of a spirit. This is because of a negative thing outside of me, because I think that there can be some comfort to put something on another thing, something on another thing that it's not from you. It is not from the world and all of the things that we deal with. It is from some malevolent metaphysical entity that's making my life worse. I understand the impulse to do that. And I think that for some people, if that brings you some manner of peace in that moment, totally. I don't think that that's, the worst thing in the world, but I do think it can prevent us sometimes from looking at the true underlying causes, which are
yes,
varied and many.
yes. And I think in that same vein, and this is part of what I loved so much about the pilot of Liminal, is the joy. There's a lot of joy being showcased, which is, if we are gonna shove things into a dichotomy in terms of like, the tone of a supernatural narrative or show, like there's so much joy and laughter and play, and I think that's so,
Part of that
yeah.
oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, I'm bad at framing questions. What were you
I
gonna
think you're
say?
doing a great job.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, just part of that is that, Rosa and I, we come from the world of stand-up comedy. I did that for over a decade. That's how we met. That's how me and Rosa met. We met in New
Oh,
York City at an open mic, and we went to dinner afterwards. And I was like, I actually can't tell if this is a date. And Rosa was like, I am engaged. And I was like, all right, guess we'll just be best friends. And we're best friends now. Um, and yeah, and so we I think we bring a lot of sort of like joking and joy and sort of happy energy, because that's just us hanging out, that's
yeah,
just kind of how we are together. um and I also just think that, like, someone asked me the other day, and I was talking about this, I've said this to a couple people, but someone asked me, like, how do you not float off into space? How
yeah,
do you not, how do you uh how do you not become a person where, like, every time you look at a digital clock, you're like angel numbers,
yeah,
and like every every time a bird shows up, it's like, this is a sign. And I think that the way for me, and this is not for everyone, the way for me is that it's almost like I am reminded by the phenomena constantly, because the phenomena is very funny. It's very playful, it's very funny. Everything in the way that magic interacts with me in my life is often pretty fucking funny. And like, even so, in the pilot, there's a part, and I was talking to you about this a little bit just over chat. There's a part where, so in that first Estes method, when I'm feeling the full body dread, and I'm like feeling very bad, this word comes in, the teeth comes in, and we had this like very silly thing with the teeth prior to that, where we're talking to the town historian, Tim Henson, Jim Henson's brother. It's not. That's what we were calling him the whole time, because it was funny to us. And he's asking us if we want to see Joel Bell's false teeth, and I'm like, no, yucky.
right.
That's yucky. I don't want to do that. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do that. And he's like, well, this last guy, I got him out so he could touch him. And I was like, oh, so he's like a real pervert though, huh? Because that's funny to me to say. I don't actually think he's some sort of teeth pervert. I was just making a joke. And this guy's like, oh, he's not a pervert. He's writing a book. And I was like, I was joking. It's whatever. And I told the editor, I was like, you got to keep that in because that's so funny to me. This guy's
He's writing a book.
He's not a pervert. He's writing a book.
Yeah.
And so, but we had this little moment about the teeth, and it was very funny to me. And so, where I'm in this very intense Estes session where I'm feeling bad, like dread in my whole body, and I'm feeling bad. And then the teeth comes through, and I say the teeth, and I laugh, and the laughter snaps me out of it, and the laughter grounds me, and the laughter sort of brings me back down to this space. And this is how it often works for me in paranormal stuff. Like, so all of these things will happen, but then on some level they'll be pretty funny, and I think that's what stops me from like taking it and taking myself too seriously, because you can't, because it's funny.
Yeah.
It makes you laugh. And I think that like that sort of that joy and that laughter and that sort of experience, I don't want it to just be scary. I want it to be fun. I want it to be, and there's parts that are probably going to be scary because we're in scary places at night sometimes. But I also want it to be fun because I'm having fun. And I want to sort of, again, that's that, like, I want to present to people what we are experiencing as we experience it.
Heck yeah. Oh my God. Well, we're at a good hour mark. Do you need to use any sort of facilities to restore your personal comforts before we move on?
I'm doing all right.
Okay,
At some
cool.
point, this Polar Seltzer Premium Cranberry Lime will make its way through my body, and I'll probably run to the bathroom very briefly. But I'm doing all right.
Okay, just wanted to check in because
TMI for the chat. Hey, chat, was that TMI?
we have some great "Go Piss Girl" emotes in the chat from
Sick.
one of my beautiful mods, Helltran. I'm sure that'll be posted at some point. Because I do want to get around to eventually. Yes, thank you.
Oh yeah, that rocks. Good work.
I do want to get around to cartomancy and stuff, but I am having such a wonderful time asking you questions. And last night I was rewatching parts of the pilot, trying to like come up with like, oh, this will be, and it was like, no, just go off the cuff because there's so much going on here, and it's so rich. And the first time I watched it, I was DMing you like constantly because I had to. I didn't want to forget.
I love when people do that.
Yeah, like there's.
Also, I genuinely love when people do that. That's good.
Yeah. Here's something I wanted to say out loud. The response has been overwhelmingly positive.
It has been mostly positive, and we did get our first negative comment yesterday.
That's right.
And I'm leaving it up because it's so goddamn funny.
It is
so funny. And I'm ready, if someone comes in with some real nasty bigotry stuff, I'll take that down for sure. I'll delete stuff like that. But this one I will leave up hopefully forever because it has brought me a lot of joy. I'm going to make a TikTok about it later.
Yeah.
It's like actually really funny. But this person said, let me pull up, here it is. You believe you are far more important than you actually are, period. Everyone has the ability to seek out paranormal, period. Not special, period. Too much fluff, period. Smiley face emoji. Now, here's what I like about it. It brings a very specific energy, and the energy is, I'm not angry. You can't prove that I'm angry. I'm not angry. It's a very like, I'm not angry. You can't prove I'm angry, which is great. And it also has a big like, I know that I'm not allowed to say a slur, so I won't kind of energy, and I like that too. But also, not special, period, is just, that's like, I think that's my new favorite thing to say about stuff I don't like, I think special. Not special, it's just like, not special. That's so fucking funny to me. It's so good. Audio Murphy, it does sound like Zach Baggins wrote it a little bit. I don't know how the man write, but I assume there would be more caps lock if Zach Baggins had penned this one. He seems like a real caps lock enthusiast.
Yeah,
but this one brought me a lot of joy.
But
mostly very positive reaction. People have been very excited about the show.
Yeah, I know. I love that. Well, I've completely lost my train of thought. I wanted to ask about like Zach Bagans, but I just feel like it's so, everyone's already shared their opinion. Like I've come around. Like I started like, oh, Ghost Adventures is funny and interesting. Wait a minute, like I don't agree with their
Y-
techniques, and I really disagree with.
Yeah.
Oh, but actually, you know what? Something about the way this is made is really entertaining, and I like falling asleep to it. I totally don't agree with this new season. Like, it just is
Yeah.
always going back and forth, and like, is it productive? Is it not? And eventually, it's just like, hey, that guy's,
I don't know the man. I've never met the man.
yeah. I don't want to. I don't
I
need to speak
I've
disparagingly.
I've heard many I've heard many stories of him being cruel to people. That makes me sort of feel like I don't like the man, just based on just stories from just people at conventions, people at stuff who have had bad experiences. So I'm not aiming too hard to line up the collab between him and myself. I don't think we really believe in the same stuff anyway.
Right. Have you
Um,
been to many conventions, like paranormal based? Because we were
I haven't
talking.
I haven't been to I haven't been to paranormal conventions. I wanna go very bad.
Me
I wanna
too.
go very bad. I would love to get to a spot with this show where, like, we're being able to, like, make presentations and maybe have little panels. Trying to do a thing, like, maybe, me and Rosa doing some paranormal stand-up comedy, stuff like that. I think that it could be really fun to take part in some paranormal conventions in a big way. I will say, as a person who is very COVID conscious and sort of knowing, and this is a thing you butt up against in the paranormal very much, where you'll find someone and you'll find something and you'll be like, wow, this person has like really interesting things to say.
Right.
They have like really cool stuff, and then you'll go on their Twitter feed and be like, oh, okay, no, it's for sure different ships in the night, like not necessarily
Whoop.
don't sign off on a lot of these things. And so I definitely feel a little bit of apprehension about, masking and vaccine levels and stuff like that people would have at certain paranormal conventions, just going knowing how different sort of communities do sort of crossover, because I wear a mask all over the place because I care about my safety and the safety of others, and I all sorts of stuff. That said, I would very much like to attend some paranormal conventions. And CJ, you're right, I am presenting at Anomicon 2 in September.
Oh.
I am putting together a presentation that really gets into, so it's sort of we'll be talking a lot about sort of similar topics to Liminal in terms of the connection between the paranormal and queerness, but I will also be I'll be going a little bit deeper into some of the stuff that I could not get to in the show for the sake of the edit. So, like, I've got my copy of Leslie Feinberg's Transgender Warriors on the thing. I'll be citing to that book a lot. That is one of my favorite books of all time, maybe the most important book I've ever read. I'll be getting into that a lot. I will be getting into just other sort of the more like the literature side of things that I didn't necessarily get to dive into as much in the show that I wanted. And I will also be showing some of the interview clips from the pilot of Liminal, where we talk to some of the local queer and trans people. So yes, I am one of the presenters at Anomicon 2. I'm very excited, and I'm very, yeah. Ryan asked if I could be a part of that, and I was very, very excited to say
Oh,
yes.
cool.
And so that'll be very cool. That'll be very cool and fun, I think.
I love those interviews. You've been posting all sorts of wonderful clips from. That was one of the biggest, like, um, what's like a loving gut punch? When I was watching the pilot for the first time, it was just like, oh my god, I love every word that's being said by all of these people right now, and the fact that it's being contextualized in this like package, this
Yeah.
delivery. I really relate to what you said earlier about like in my later 20s when I got back into paranormal stuff, and I would be like, oh, I see eye to eye with this person and we're researching the same thing. And then I go to
Yeah.
their social media page and it's like, oh, we are pitted against each other completely ideologically.
Yeah.
Like, what
Absolutely.
the heck? But I
Yeah.
guess through the paranormal, we're able to see each other as human. But at the same time, it's
Yeah.
like, what kind of legislation would this person vote for? Would they see me as human?
Totally.
Um,
Totally.
so again, I know it's been said over and over, but thank you again for providing a huge platform for perspectives. It's anything I say is going to sound rote right now. I feel like it's just like
No, I think you're doing a great job.
there's so
I
much
appreciate what
fringe
you're saying.
like presence, and fringe means something different to everybody depending on what their mainstream
Absolutely.
is.
One of the things that, and this is not to get our little plug in there again, but one of the backer incentives on our on our Seed and Spark is access to the full interviews, because for television, interviews have to get cut down and I'll watch and I'll get kind of bummed out because I'm like, oh, this person said other incredibly cool things that don't make the pilot, that don't make the cut. And so one of the things that we're offering to people as a backer reward on our Seed and Spark is access to like the archives, access to the archives of like, if you want to sit and see the full interview with this person, you can, and you can see like everything we talked about, not just the parts that made it into the thing. So that is one of the things that we are offering as a backer incentive that I am very, very excited for people to sort of be able to dig into and sort of get into. In terms of the like, you know, there's a lot of stuff where people, there's a lot of sort of like, there's a lot of live and let live stuff that I think is good in theory, you know,
Right.
about the way that people sort of approach things. I think we need to be very conscious about like the level of harm that people do cause by their actions and what it means to be, especially, and this is like, not that we need more responsibility as trans people, but I also know that like, if I'm talking to someone and their opinions on trans people are bad, and I'm like, but I'm connecting with them on this level, and so we are taking a picture together. That person now can use me as evidence that they don't actually hate trans people because they know one. And so
Right.
I'm constantly aware of like, am I somebody's like token friend to dodge bigotry claims? And I think that for me, I'm just like, honestly, and this is why like people will accuse you of being in an echo chamber, and I don't think that that's true because plenty of people in my life disagree about lots of things, even political things. You know, I organize in a leftist political organizing group working for a free Palestine, and in that group we've got anarchists and we've got democratic socialists, and we have all sorts of different opinions. We have all sorts of people who are saying we should be working on our, you know, congressional delegate. We should be working on at the local level first. We should be saying fuck electoral politics in general. We need to set up community networks. There's all these different opinions, and I'm not going to say which one is like, oh, this is the right answer, because who knows? There's a lot of different opinions and a lot of different things. So I welcome discourse. I welcome discussion. I welcome all sorts of stuff like that. But when it comes to like, this group is not human, or this group is whatever, I'm
Right.
like, I actually don't need that person in my life. It's
Right.
funny, early on in this space, and I don't say names here because I think legally you can't. I don't know, whatever.
I also want to
I
apologize to Zach Bagans. Okay, sorry. I didn't need to bring him up.
um no, it's fine. I think the chat brought up Zach
All right.
Bagans, so
Well, on
that's not
behalf of
that's
the
not
chat.
on you.
All right. Sorry.
um Someone sent me a book. And I read it and I was like, this is the shit. This makes sense. It was all about like marginalized people in the paranormal space and all of these things and all this stuff. And I was like, this rocks. Like, I gotta talk to this guy. Like, I gotta get this guy. And so I went on the internet and I found his email and I emailed this person who wrote this book. And he emailed me immediately and he's like, let's get on the phone. And I was like, hell yeah. And I got on the phone and we talked for like an hour and a half. And I was like, this is so cool. This feels like a mentor. I'm new to this space. This feels whatever. And then we got off the phone and I was feeling great. And I was like, I'm going to like, this is like a resource. This is a mentor. This is a connection. This is a person to person connection. And then on our second phone call, he started talking about George Floyd. And I was like, oh no. He
Oh,
started having very bad opinions about George Floyd. He started saying QAnon dog whistles. And so I was
yes.
just like, all right, never mind. Like, never mind, never mind. Because for me, you know, and I think there's this sort of like, I think there can be this instinct to be like, oh, but you know, there's still some parts I can cite to, and there's still some. And when I was doing talking to this person, I was like writing out the things that I wanted to talk about on my show and the stuff that I wanted to cite to. Citing to your sources is a very, you know, that's the English major in me. It feels very important. I dislike that no one talks about the fact that Katie Webb really pioneered tarot in the paranormal investigation in a mainstream way. That bothers me very much. I love Katie
We
Webb.
love
She
Katie
rocks,
Webb.
and
Oh my God.
she should get more credit. A lot of people just do it like they came up with it, and that is upsetting to me. In the pilot episode, you'll notice that I cite to Connor Randall and Carl Pfeiffer as the pioneers of the Estes method because nothing makes me. I just, you know, I watch all these shows and someone's like, this is the East method. And I'm like, now here's a couple of things about what you've just said. But then they just do it. And it's like, oh, it's from Estes Park, Colorado. It's named after a place where a thing is that they did during a web series. You can just say it. You can say, they made this thing. Jen, I didn't even want to, I wasn't even trying to do it as a shout out. I'm literally just like, I'm doing a thing where I know the people who invented it, so I'm going to mention that because that feels respectful to me. Anyway, when I was talking to this person on the phone and I sort of got off the phone, I was just like, oh, I'm not going to cite to this person at all. The show is going to proceed and carry on even without, and it's hard because like a lot of the stuff in that first book that was written, 40 years ago or 30 years ago or however long ago, a lot of stuff in that book aligns very well with some of the things that I was trying to say. But I was like, I got to find a different way to say it. I got to find a different way to get there, or
Mm.
just talk about my own experience and not cite, you know what I mean? Just like not tread some of these same things because to me it's more important not to feature a thing if I know that it comes from a place that is so connected with like hatred and fascism and all sorts of things that I just really can't sign off on.
Yeah.
And I just think that's really important. And that goes to citing your sources too. I think it's vetting your sources as best as you can. And it's not always obvious, you can't catch everything all the time, but I think it's so important as we try to make art, that the art that we're making and the sort of the art that we're referencing and talking about is good. Like I love talking about Leslie Feinberg because Leslie Feinberg fucking rocked. He was a very cool person, a very cool, politically active person. And
Can you
so,
say the name
I
of
try
that
to
book one more time? Transgender Warrior?
Transgender Warriors, incredible book, maybe the most important book
Thank
that
you.
I've ever read. A huge recommendation. And in the book, Leslie Feinberg talks a lot about like people throughout history, that again, I think Feinberg just calls them trans, which I don't. I take it. Personally, I'm like, I'm not going to call someone from history trans because I think that you sort of have to opt into that name yourself, especially people from cultures that do not belong to me. I don't want to put labels on people who don't belong to, who are from cultures that I'm not like, that's my culture, that's whatever. Joan of Arc, great one, right? Where not about the culture thing, but just about the history thing. Was Joan
Right.
of Arc trans? I don't know. If you gave Joan of Arc the option to ideas trans, who fucking knows what Joan of Arc would have said? I think that a lot of trans people vibe with Joan of Arc for a lot of very obvious reasons, and that makes sense. Think that Joan of Arc can definitely be an icon to sort of trans people in a very specific way. I'm not gonna go and say like that was a trans person because like I don't know. I'm not talking to Joan of Arc. I haven't done a ghost thing to talk to Joan of Arc. Maybe we should. That said, Joan of Arc sat under a fairy tree. Joan of Arc sat under
Yes.
a fairy tree, and heard all the voices and heard all of these things that were like, buck gender identity, do other stuff, don't exist in the way that you need to exist. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that that's sort of a absolutely, Helltrain. We have definitely always been here. That said, you know what I'm saying about like the label, though. You know what I mean? Like
Right. You
even
meant
if this person, yeah,
you mentioned on Berg's podcast anachronistic. It can be
yeah,
anachronistic,
yeah,
which I thought was
precisely.
like an interesting point to make because it's an essential part of how consciousness expresses itself as humanity, etc. But
Absolutely.
in terms of like language, verbiage,
Do I think that Hans Christian Andersen, if you told Hans Christian Andersen what trans people were, I think that Hans Christian Andersen might be like, oh fuck, based on the way that the Little Mermaid's body changes and the pain of existing is described in a way that sounds very, very, very much like dysphoria and being in the wrong body and existing wrong. Do I think that Hans Christian Andersen maybe had an experience living that might align with being transgender today? Yeah, definitely. But I'm not going to say Hans Christian Andersen was trans because, like, again, I think you got to opt. I think you have to make that choice to say, this is what I am, this is how I ID, with the knowledge. A lot of people didn't have the language for
right,
that.
right. Labels can be helpful and sometimes hindering depending on how they're used and how much they can give us strength in community. And it's a wonderful it's a wonderful maze to navigate through sometimes.
And sometimes it's very obvious, like the author of Little Women having actual letters written to be like, call me this, use he him pronouns for me, stuff like
Oh,
that, where it's like, or like call me he, stuff like that. Like you got to find the letters, but they're very like that one is like, okay, no, that one I feel a lot more confident.
it's
You
pretty
know what I
explicit
mean?
right there.
Where like people sort of explicitly say, yeah,
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, heavens to Betsy. Do you want to read some cards?
yeah, sure. I'm not. Hey, I'm here. I'm hanging out. Let's do whatever.
Let's do
I'm so
whatever.
very down.
Oh, yeah. I know. I'm gonna keep coming up with fun little questions, but My something keeps telling me to read some cards for
Let's do
you.
it. That's
Um,
very exciting.
yeah, I have a little. Look at this. Oh, there's a little camera up there. I don't know if you can see it on the stream.
I'm tuned into the stream also, so I can have the chat open. Oh, there I see it.
It's probably a
But
bit
there's
of
latency,
lag.
so it comes. It's got some lag. Well, that's so you don't get stream sniped. That's so that nobody stream snipes you.
Heck.
Are you? Do you play the? Do you do the video games on the Twitch enough to be aware of the stream sniping and what the stream sniping is?
I've heard it used in a myriad of ways. Oh, it's our good friend Wizworld Live.
What up? What up, Franklin?
We got a Frank
Stream
in
snipe.
chat. Frankie.
Yeah, we got a hello the nerdifer.
Hey, Nerdiver.
Yeah, so I know this because of the competitive Pokemon players that I have followed on Twitch and the competitive Pokemon that I've done on Twitch. Basically, if you are playing Pokemon on Twitch, and you are a popular or people are watching you, you have to set your latency to be like 40 seconds because that's the amount of time to lock in your moves. That way people don't see the moves that you're gonna do and then like plan around that. And
Like-
that's called stream sniping, where someone
Ah.
is like watching you and playing against you and using the knowledge of watching you on Twitch to beat you at the game.
Okay, like screen
That would
watching
be-
back in the day. Or
yeah,
yeah,
basically.
like when you do split screen or something. And yeah,
Plant Danny, you're cool. Come on. What are we? Thank you. It's very sweet. It's a very sweet thing to say.
Dash is very
I
cool.
think I'm
Danny's very
alright.
cool.
I think I'm fine. I'm fine.
I
I
think-
don't know. I think I'm okay.
I think-
I'm just trying to have a good time.
This is very exciting. I'm trying to remember like the first time I saw you in a piece of media. It might have been.
Okay. Probably Wizworld, right?
It was either a Wizworld or a WUFO Wednesday, where
That makes sense.
it was like, oh, I've seen them
Those things.
like around, and oh wait, they know Wizworld and they know Katie Webb, and I had seen Katie Webb on some Twitch stream like 3 years ago or something, like doing something with the what that machine that induces hallucinations,
Oh yes.
like a dream machine or something. It was fascinating. But
Prince Anime, I am afraid that you are going to be canceled for thinking that I'm smart and funny. That is a cancelable.
oh yeah,
The cancelable. Everyone's saying nice.
we have
things
to
about me
we have to
in the
ban
chat.
Prince Anime for being too nice in chat. That's just
Everyone's
unacceptable.
saying nice things about me. Everyone is so kind. Everyone is so kind to me. I'm not. This is the internet, you know. This is not how the internet goes in general. But
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you, chat. Everyone's being so sweet.
We have a very sweet
everyone-
chat here.
Everyone's being so sweet. I'm actually kind of curious if I can ask. Hey, who of everyone here who has seen the pilot yet? Who has checked out what we're doing? Who has seen? Oh, thank you. Who has seen it so far? Are you sure you didn't see that? Yeah, probably. Frankie, I don't think anybody watched that. I don't think anybody watched Brash Boys Club. They got that was such a this is one of my Plant Danny. If you haven't seen it, I think you're gonna like it. I think you're gonna like it. I think you might enjoy it. Keiru Kobold, yeah. So we just met at the furry convention. Again, has a really wonderful fursuit. One of my favorite fursuits I saw over the weekend. Very good. Because also this is like there's the way that people accessorize their fursuit is so important, and so they have this really cute big glasses to put on the fursuit head that are delightful, and I love the way that people create accessories for their furred suits. I love a furred suit. Not people don't. I'm not just talking. I am a furry. This is one of mine. This is me. This is sort of some fun stylized art.
Dang.
Of my that is my persona is named Dang, and I'm a purple pit bull, and that's
Oh.
one of the many facets of my being. Is
Oh, that's so
being a
cute.
furry.
I love that.
Okay, so Jin saw it. Plant Danny has not seen it.
Yep. Are you talking about Derby? Derby? Brash Boys Club?
Oh no, I'm talking about the pilot. Brash Boys Club. Ugh, I'm not gonna talk too much shit because I am in this thing. But I got right before I quit stand-up comedy, right before the pandemic started, I got invited to be part of like a stand-up comedy thing that's like 3 different comics doing a half an hour, and this person was like, "Hey, I want to have you on this thing," and I was like, "For sure." Not a boy. Does that matter? And he was like, not at all. And then I've never been misgendered more. And I've never been. There's probably stuff I probably shouldn't. There's some of the stuff I shouldn't say.
Okay.
It was not a delightful experience
Sure.
on the back end of it. and also the person didn't necessarily when you film a stand-up comedy special, you are supposed to you're supposed to make sure that an audience is there, especially if you're not booking famous comedians. And if you don't do that, the audio on the stand-up comedy special will not be as good as maybe it could be. And I'm just saying that hypothetically, that's a thing that's true about filming a stand-up comedy special.
Some advice for people in the future, surely.
Written on for if anyone is in the future trying to film a stand-up comedy special. And it just sort of, I did this thing, and the whole experience was what it was, and I got to the end of it, and I was like, 'cause I was at the point where I'm like, I'm kind of walking away from the stand-up career anyway, and I was like, what a perfect finale. What a like, and I mean like, what a the thing at the end of 10 years plus of being on the road and sleeping on couches and sleeping in weird hotels and performing at casinos and doing stuff. I've actually, sorry, I do want to get to cards. I will say this year for me, I have sort of I have started to, because I sort of regard stand-up comedy in a very negative light based on a lot of just my experience in it. I love the act of it. I love the actual the 5 to 60 minutes of being on stage doing it. There is nothing that compares, and every other part of it sucks. Every other part where you're not on stage literally telling jokes is a nightmare. But I think that I've really started to sort of look back on it with gratitude, and sort of being thankful for. I'm very comfortable talking in front of people. I'm very comfortable expressing myself in a specific way. I'm very comfortable with sort of punchline delivery. I think a lot about wording the things that I'm trying to say, and I'm very comfortable sort of like getting into like, all right, I have to talk and I have to present and I have to do this thing. It's very easy for me to jump into that, and there are all these skills that I've taken away from over a decade in stand-up comedy, and for that I'm grateful, and I feel good about that, and I am grateful. As many negative things as there were in the experience, I'm at a point where I can be like, yeah, but there's some good things that have made my life better that I have taken away from it.
Yeah, it's always been
Yeah.
a medium that I admire very much so because I love making people laugh. I love to talk at great length. And
Yep.
I've always wanted to explore stand-up comedy, but the times I have, I was young and I was arrogant and I didn't prepare anything. And I thought that I could get by on improvising and charisma alone. And I was eviscerated by people who really care about the craft. And I
It's
needed that experience.
it's very interesting to me, I think, because I hear that a lot, people who are, because, and this is sort of this, and this is so far off the beaten path of where we started. Stand-up comedy is fascinating to me because it is uh perceived in a very specific way by people who don't do it or who haven't done it, based on the lie of the art form, based on the kayfabe of stand-up comedy.
Totally.
Because you are, when I'm saying a joke that I have said 1,000 times before, it only works if I say it in such a way that the audience thinks these are thoughts I'm having in the moment. So the kayfabe, the lie, the performance of it relies on pretending that this is a new thought, pretending that I'm just sort of talking. And so when someone watches that and they're like, okay, so I get it. You're just sort of talking. That makes sense if you watch someone who's doing it well. That's the lie, that's the buy-in, and so bless you, and so it makes sense that so many people are like, oh, I can just get up and say whatever because that's what it is presented as. And then you say, actually, no, sorry, that's a joke that was written probably that the other day was 6 years ago in the
Yes.
joke. When someone says the other day I went to the store, you went to the store somewhere in the many years prior, but you say it in the way, and it feels genuine, and it feels like it's happening in the moment. um and that's the lie. So it makes sense. It makes sense that people get up and just think like, oh, I can just talk because it
Yes.
is presented as such.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think about performance a lot. I think about
Yeah.
authenticity a lot when it comes to like making a satisfying piece of art. Or I was just recently introduced to the term kayfabe because I grew up knowing about wrestlers and watching, but not being into it enough for it to be like a. I knew what the word kayfabe was until I was like in my 30s.
Totally.
And it applies to so many different things. I'm sure a lot of people, you know, have employed that very tool in a paranormal sense.
Totally.
We
Absolutely.
think about
I mean, that's cold reads, you know?
cold
That's
reads.
people who may or may not be the house psychic on several paranormal investigation shows that are popular. That's maybe knowing that that person has an assistant walking around the bar at paranormal conventions, hearing the stories people are saying so that they can report to that person. And then during the cold read psychic session, they can be like, you're dealing with this thing. And
Yeah.
not say, my assistant at the bar heard you talking about your personal life and is feeding that information to me.
Yes, I think that's a big part of why I love, as little as do know about it, I just love wrestling as an art so much because everyone's participating in joy over
Yeah.
like a conflict in a battle. And to compare and contrast with a paranormal investigation where you and your wife go in and convince a family that the devil is like attacking their child, that's a different kind
Yeah.
of like hyper reality to
Yeah.
engage with an audience.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of responsibility that can come from
Definitely.
belief systems and like how much do you
Definitely.
want to play with or how much do you want to stretch. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I I think that not to burst the bubble on wrestling, but I will say as recently as very recently, multiple major wrestling companies have been like, and this guy's bad because he's foreign. So not always not always a perfect source of joy, but I certainly know what you're
No.
talking about.
Yeah, definitely reflecting certain consciousnesses of the time that were perpetuated and pretty dated and limited, to
Sometimes,
put it
yeah.
politely. I've been thinking about that a lot, like or what you mentioned earlier about accidentally getting wrapped up in like a group of people that aren't necessarily like don't have your best interest or your growth in mind because of these subjects and things like that. And it made me think of like that synchronicity. Some can tell you to stop and some can tell you to go, and it's
Totally.
all like, hey, just do with what your excitement feels comfortable
Yeah.
following and where you feel safe, obviously. Some
I
people
say
sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, on the other hand, some people like to chase danger and are
Yeah.
excited,
Totally.
and that adds to their narrative. And
Definitely.
yeah,
I say a lot that I think as long as everyone's having a good time without that good time being at the expense of another person,
yeah.
that's all we can, that's what we aim for. I will real quick, people talking about different wrestling to get into. Folks, I've only recently learned about TJPW, and I gotta say that's the one. This is the best, consistently the best professional wrestling I've ever seen in my life. Tokyo Joshi Pro Wrestling. Joshi is the greatest wrestling on the planet. Joshi is women wrestling in Japan.
Oh,
Just some of the coolest athletes, some of the most like insane feats of athleticism. Specifically, there's a character right now who is great named Maki Ito. Her gimmick is that she could not make it as an idol, so she became a pro wrestler.
oh,
Very funny, very good. She sings her own theme music. She recently at TJPW Grand Princess was the name of the show. She wrestled Minoru Suzuki, who is a very scary old man who like used to be a shoot fighter. Like he used to be an actual MMA guy, and now he's just like he's this great nerd. He loves One Piece. He's been animated into some official One Piece episodes as himself,
oh
which
my
is
god.
fucking cool. Yeah, Minoru Suzuki, my favorite of all time, and he wrestles Maki Ito, who is again and like just the story that they tell of this like very angry, very bratty, failed idol versus like one of the scariest people who's ever professional wrestled, and like the story that they tell, it's great. It's really good. Maki Ito versus Minoru Suzuki at TJPW Grand Princess 2024. A huge recommendation from me.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I love wrestling is great, and TJPW is maybe my favorite company in the world right now.
Oh, that's very exciting.
The chat's just talking about some
I
wrestling,
love
talking
it.
about lucha libre, talking about
Would you mind if I used the restroom?
Go for it.
And
Hey,
if you don't have to,
chat, get the things up, chat.
go piss girls. But if you don't want to, if you don't need to take a break yourself, you can feel free to keep interacting with
Yeah,
chat if you'd like.
totally.
I'll be right
Yeah.
back. Hopefully, I'm
Definitely. I will be here potentially talking about wrestling. Go piss girl. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for putting it in the chat. Now she's allowed. Um Yeah, Jordan Grace. Jordan Grace is so cool. I saw her wrestle in Brooklyn. I saw her wrestle in I was at a show outside of a school in Brooklyn. And she was playing heel. Jordan Grace was playing heel, but I was so jazzed because I like Jordan Grace so much that I was like so smiley, and then like she was just like flipping people off, and I like so smiley, and I like reached out, and she like looked at me, and she kind of like rolled her eyes, but then like gave me a high five, and I lost my mind. I got so excited. Jordan Grace rocks. Yeah, we can. Yeah, that's true. Kylie Butterfly does make the chainmail for Cody Rhodes' armor. It's very cool. Um, the heels are the best. Yeah, I like the heels a lot. I love it. You know, it's here's my thing. I love a tweener. I love someone who can sort of like. I love someone who can like, jump back and forth. You learn to take chair shots. Argyle, that rocks. I mean, I hope you never have to use it in practice. But yeah, no, wrestling is cool, and I wish that the people in charge of it were better as people, and at least in the context of the larger money making organizations. Yeah, I can't recommend TJPW highly enough. Aja Kong's over there. Um, and right now I think they got Aja Kong tag teaming with Max the Impaler, who's like a really powerful, very scary looking non-binary pro wrestler who is Mad Max themed. So that rocks. They're very cool and very scary. And so it's just the team is just two giant scary people, which is fucking cool. It's a cool gimmick. It's a cool gimmick for it's a cool gimmick for wrestling. Who should the DNC get to oppose Hulk Hogan? Well, um, I don't. I mean,
Goku.
they should, right? They probably should get someone to oppose. I don't know, John Cena. John Cena seems like a pretty like good standard center left lib guy to let him wrestle once, bust out Hogan's knees. You know those knees aren't good anymore. You know that. I
Old
Yeah,
Hollywood
probably
Cena.
Goku is correct. Old Hollywoods. I'll say I'm so glad every now and then a wrestler escapes from professional wrestling and gets to be a real actor, and I'm just like, hey, I'm so happy for you that you got to do that. John Cena's comedic timing is legitimately very good. Very funny. The comedic timing on that man, very funny.
I enjoyed him in
Glad
the
that he gets
new
to be
The
in movies now.
Bear.
Did you see Cock Blockers that he's in?
Yes, I saw that with my grandma.
A delightful film. A delightful film.
It was a lot of
Really,
fun.
they pitched it that all the trailers made it look like it was going to be a movie about preserving female virginity in like a weird, gross way, and then it ended up not being that. It ended up being just like a very good, funny comedy. It was like a teen romp in a way that like girls don't get to have like horny teen romp movies in the way that like there have been so many like American Pie, all this stuff about a bunch of like shithead dudes, and it's like no, let some girls be shitheads. That's
Yeah.
funny. That's funny and good.
Yes. Let girls be shitheads, chat.
Let let girls be shitheads.
I think supporters of this stream are already on board with that philosophy. Gotta agree.
Yeah.
Well, heck. Hey, do you want me to
Yeah.
pull a Galactic
Let's do it.
Heritage card or
Let's do it.
two or three
Hell yeah.
for you? I'm just gonna do the exclamation mark cards in the chat. I haven't seen Bottoms yet, but Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had a great review of it. Can I just say something about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar really quickly? That maybe
Of course.
ever since I was a child, and I have no big affiliations with basketball, and I don't follow basketball. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has shown up in my dreams since I was a child
Oh.
in like a
All right.
mentor way, like a sort of we'll have
Yeah.
like spiritual conversations at a party or something, and then sort of
Yeah.
like say goodbye, and then years will pass, and I'll have another Kareem Abdul-Jabbar dream. That's been like a
I need it to be the case. I need it to be the case that if you were able to talk to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he'd be like, "Yeah, this girl just shows up
yeah.
in my dreams."
Yeah.
I need that to be both of you experiences.
I would love to know that. I love thinking about that in terms of the it's like a two-way street, I guess, that whole
Yeah,
projection.
I want that to be the case so bad. That's rocks, though. I'm very excited about it. Okay, I'm gonna look at the stream, so I'm gonna be slightly behind on the stream. I must be slightly behind what you're doing because of the stream. There's latency, again to prevent stream sniping. So I can't
Yes.
on the Discord. I can't see
I
your
can't
I can
have
see
you
your
knowing which Pokemon moves I'm gonna choose ahead of time.
right. Yeah.
I take this very seriously.
So Galactic Heritage cards. That is the new set of Pokemon cards.
These are Pokemon cards, but for
Right,
space.
cool, sick.
Yeah. Gosh, I have to tell you, I love Pokemon so much, but I never followed past the first 150 in terms of like memorizing.
Here's my thing. A lot of people will tell you the new ones aren't good, and those people are lying to your face. All of them are good. All of them are good.
I believe it.
Coming up on like 1,000 now. They're all great.
Oh,
They're
wow.
so good. The newest games, Scarlet Violet, are probably the best games they've ever made, to me, in my opinion. The new ones rock. And I say this as a longtime Soul Silver appreciator. I'll say this.
Was that your
again? I play competitive. I play competitive Pokemon. I play I do the VGC. I do all of that. Was that my first? No, my first Pokemon game was Blue version, the OG,
Awesome.
the first that they released in this. I remember, I did not know what time Pokemon was on television, but I did know what channel, and I would just turn that channel on and be like, "How about now?"
Yep.
As a child, and it most of the time, I'll tell you, was not on. That is not how television works.
Synchronicity.
Every now and then, yeah,
Yeah.
synchronicity for when Pokemon is on. But yeah, no, all the Pokemon are good. I'm building out a sleeve. I got Totodile here, right under my Dionysus
Oh, let's see that. Let me get you a little bigger on the screen.
I've got
in the Green Lantern.
Mudkip. You can see, and then the big one, and you'll notice how good I've gotten at blocking my nip when I do this.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Squirtle right there.
Oh,
that's how we're doing.
Thank you. And that you didn't show anything further, so we aren't breaking TOS. That's so beautiful. Hey,
Twitch is fine. Twitch is fine with Squirtle as long as there's no nips.
Hey Dash, I heard you like Mudkips.
Hey, remember that?
Remember that?
Remember that one?
Remember
that was? You remember that one?
Oh boy. Oh god. So anyway,
like Mudkips.
Yeah, to bring us out of 2002 4chan or whenever that was.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, Galactic Heritage cards. Are you familiar with this deck at all? Have you watched one of my streams before?
I've watched some of the highlights that you've posted. I have enjoyed some of those, but I cannot pretend to have a working understanding of the cards.
Yeah. Me neither. Which we we brought up at the top of the stream. It's very important to. I love admitting fault. I love admitting ignorance. Mm-hmm. I think just being honest about that stuff is so vital and juicy and
This is one of the things I say in our little ghost hunting zine, which is available only for backers of the Seed and Spark campaign. Hey, if you don't know tarot well enough and you need to look up what the cards do it. There's no shame in that.
Please
look up what the cards do. I look up all the stuff. Actually, that reminds me. I do got it when I pull. I'll grab it when I get it. There's a book. The book that comes with this deck. This is the deck, by the way. This is the deck that I'll do the explainer for the deck when I'm doing a pull for you.
Okay. Well, that's okay. We've got a little bit of time because my shuffling method is about as slow as a snail.
Well, you were saying a little bit about this deck.
Oh yeah. Well, it's it was written by an author channeler who I really enjoy following, but I know a lot of people aren't interested in those specific modalities. So what I like to kind of explain it as to, especially people who are familiar with tarot, it's just archetypes. You know, it's all like affirmations of where you're at in your life. Maybe it'll provide you with some, like you being the universal recipient, whoever's getting the reading, you with some guidance, but you have to make those connections yourself. I try to do the caveat where it's like, I can't sit here and be like, this is your future, and I am going to be the person to tell it to you, because you're at the driving wheel. You're at the driver's seat.
Yeah, the driving wheel. The thing that we all refer to the part of the car as. Now, we did some fun ones at the furry convention where I was offering a 1-card tarot pull, and Jesus, take the driving wheel, they say. I was doing a 1-card tarot pull, and with that, I would do a read for someone based on a question that they asked, and then Jules, my partner, would draw. Okay, cool, good. I understand why you had to type that. It's important. Jules, my partner, would do a sketch of the person's persona, sort of in with the tarot card. In fact,
I love that.
Jules is good at art. I am not good at art, and I have been very vulnerable in our Seed and Spark Back Awards too, where there are levels, and I have to do these for a couple people. Where I will draw someone in the sort of in the art in the tarot thing, and people are gonna get to see my bad take on what that means. Not bad, but earnest. My very earnest take from a non-professional, from a person who is not an artist, who is just kind of like to draw and stuff.
I think your style will be beautifully received by anyone who receives it. It's very exciting. Sometimes I find, and this is a little silly. No, it's not. Sometimes the people who describe themselves as non-musicians, I want to listen to their music. The people who describe themselves as non-illustrators or non-artists, I want to see what they doodle. It's such a exciting perspective, in my opinion.
One of the things, one of the sort of the capitalism brain things that I try very hard to break out of is the idea of doing something for the sake of it and not for the sake of professional consumption.
Yes.
And that is to say, and that's, because I do get into, like, if I have a sketchbook and I'm just drawing like bugs or whatever, I have a very good time. But then I have that little part of my brain that's like, yeah, but this is not good enough for resale, and so it's not worth doing. And I think that I try to break out of that. I struggle with it. I struggle with it, especially as a person who, like, so much of my existence has been the commodification of self, and the sort of the turning of the self into the product. That's stand-up comedy. The joke doesn't work unless people want to hear me say it. Like, it's not just the joke, it's the me.
Right.
And so even this show, the idea is, like, I have to be a presentable, consumable host for this show. So, like, I am. If someone really hates listening to me talk, they're not going to enjoy this show very much.
Luckily, so, you are a pleasure to listen to talk in that episode. Yeah. I was amazed by that. Actually, did you? And you don't have to pull back the curtain too much if it feels inappropriate. But, like, when I was rewatching it, and the first time, I was really struck by, like, oh my God, they are putting words where, I mean, you can hear me do it in this interview where I, like, trail off and I interrupt myself mid-sentence. They're very abstract concepts, and you were so, like, confident and resolute with your articulation. Like,
thank you. What is the? Are you asking how much of that was?
Did you have cue cards, or, like, did you look at?
I did not have cue cards. I did not have cue cards for the opening monologue of the show. That is stuff that I wrote out. I wrote that out. And then I would briefly memorize parts of it. Yeah, Frankie points out we cannot afford cue cards.
I guess, yeah.
Need my Joe Biden teleprompter so that I can also ignore it and trail off. No, I spend a lot of time thinking about this stuff is one, but also, like, for a lot, like, it depends on which part we're dealing with. So, like, in the opening monologue, that is written because I was like, this feels like a thing that I want to write out my thoughts to, like, really make sure I'm nailing them.
Yeah.
And then I would look at several paragraphs on my phone and be like, I think I got it, and put it in my pocket, and then I'll say it, and then the second take I'll get it a little bit better, and the third take I'll get it a little bit better, and then we're good. For a lot of other parts, there was stuff that was not written out. So, like, nothing in the closing, nothing in the sort of the episode close where I'm outside right after our final sort of, like, ritual with Fox. That was all off the cuff. That was all sort of, like, I took a second and I talked to Rose and I talked to Jules and Fox, and I was like, these are the sort of the thoughts that are sort of existing in my brain right now. I'm thinking about stringing them together in this way. Does that make sense? I actually remember that one was so fucking stressful because we had the, like, battery low flash and the, like, we're out of storage flash happening on the recording thing. And so I was like, I gotta nail this close in one or two. I got two shots at this.
Whoa.
And I did it on the second one, and that's the one that made the cut. And then all of our shit turned off because we had been out there for a while, and I was like, all right, done and done.
That's
Frankie,
what it's.
Just don't listen, Frankie. This is Frankie. Frankie, don't worry about this. We have full batteries all the time. Don't sweat it. But for reals though, I was so nervous because I was like, okay, well, I just gotta be a one and done, and it was a two and done, but two and done did it for us.
Yeah, that's exciting when there's like a limitation forced upon a creative where it's like, well, this is going to be what it's going to be. And especially when you're dealing with like
gotta be this
synchronicity and fate. Like, is it fate that we only have 2 takes for this line? And so forth.
And then so part like it's funny you make up the synchronicity thing because like the synchronicity I had written out an explainer. We ended up not using that. I ended up recording a different thing for it, but I had written this explainer out for synchronicities that goes. It just went too much. It got too lost in the sauce. I was like, this is the thing that John Tenney said to me over Twitter DMs, and then that led to this thing that happened at this investigation we were doing in New York City, and then that led to this thing, and then there was a lot of
Eventually, you end up explaining everything that's ever happened to you.
yeah. Which and it all feels relevant, and then someone's like, "Oh, you can just say this," and I'm like, "Got it. That's smart. That makes sense." And so that was the funniest thing, and I talk about this in the show. But on the lead up, I had told the film director, I was like, "Hey, I have this thing." I was like, I just have this instinct that synchronicities are going to happen as we're doing this, so I want to shoot me explaining what they are, so we can use that if they do.
Oh, good.
Now, we didn't schedule that. We forgot to schedule that. We just didn't put that on the schedule. And then we were in this interview with Oluwatobi, who rocks. They're so cool. We're talking to them, and they do this oracle card read for us.
Right.
Where they say like sync, and they start saying it. And they're like, "Oh yeah, what is that?" Or Rosa's like, "Do you know what that is?" And they're like, "No." And so it's like we were queued up for this thing that I had written but not scheduled. This thing that I had written and planned to schedule and forgot to schedule at like the second to last day of our shoot. And it was like, all right, well, this is the thing we have been calling gay director ghost in the show.
Yes.
Which I'm like, actually, I think it was Dionysus.
From the stage.
Don't worry about it. And I just felt very much like whatever the force is, whatever you want to call it, there was something that was like, hey, you need a little help making sure this has narrative cohesion.
Right.
So here is some narrative cohesion for you.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I love that. That reading, that oracle card reading was so cool because then it was like, oh, well, and I don't want to spoil anything, but like there are really strong moments of tied to objects that you've been gifted and conversations that led to events and then circling back around. Yeah, I really want, if you guys haven't seen it, I please watch the dang show. It's so flippin' good.
Check it out. There's so many ways that people can help us right now. If you watch the show and you subscribe to the YouTube channel, that helps us. If you like the video, if you leave a comment, that helps us in the algorithm. If you like it and you want to help us make more, the Seed and Spark. Argyle, it totally is. Don't worry about it. Frankie's wrong. It's fully Dionysus. I'm very confident of this. If you like the show
from a budget,
enjoy it, our Seed and Spark will let you help us make episode 2. And if you like the show and you enjoy it and you don't have the budget to help us with our Seed and Spark, you can still help us if you make an account on Seed and Spark and you hit follow on the campaign. The more people we have following, the higher up in their algorithm they'll put us. The more there's a part that's like most anticipated that will show up closer on the front page of the website. And if we're on the front page of the website, the more people going to the website will see us. So there's a lot of things that you can do to help us even outside of financial investment. If you gotta financially invest, that rocks. That's probably number one. If I'm being real, that's the number one cool one. But if you can't, there's a lot of ways you can help us that we would really, really appreciate. Following the show, subscribing to the YouTube channel, all of these things are ways that you can help us get more views, get in front of more people who are more likely to give to the campaign. It all sort of builds, and the idea is that it all sort of snowballs to a point where we can just make episode 2 a thing that I want to do so bad. And again, I said this earlier, but like we had a production meeting with Mortellus, who's going to be the focus of episode 2, and it was so cool. It was like the stuff that we have planned is literally stuff that I've never heard anyone even talk about in the context of paranormal investigation. And I just like, we're going to shoot it and it's going to be so cool. It's going to be so weird. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm just really excited. I'm just very I am very committed to shooting episode 2, however we can.
That's so exciting. This is a very exciting time, chat. A very exciting time.
You have been trying
Well,
to do card read for us for a second, and so I would love to jump into this thing.
so something I'd like to get I'm gonna get my kneecaps into frame here really quickly.
Okay,
Something I like
all
to
right,
do with because I like participation. I like
yeah.
the addition of the intention of the person getting the reading and stuff. But we're not here in person. I would love to see you in person someday soon. But right now
Oh
we're
yeah,
over the interwebs. Um,
at some point I'm coming out. We're gonna go to there's a theater in Northern California
yes,
that that I am have been told is haunted and invited to come take a look at. And so, if you're down to make the trek up, I talked about this a little bit, but if you're down to make
absolutely.
the trek up, we
It,
would love to have you. And obviously, if we're closer to you, Frankie, I don't remember which one. Christy's doing a show there, and Christy Ono, who I love very much, and who every time I come to the Bay Area does like a huge 9 card tarot spread for me that is inevitably going to end up being about my childhood trauma
oh
in a
God.
very like it's good though. No, I love Christy. Christy's so afraid to come and do one of these. I have convinced her that to come at least investigate the Fresno Nightcrawlers with me
Oh,
because that seems like the least scary of the ones.
I have a
Hell yeah.
necklace that's a Fresno Nightcrawler
Hell
that
yes.
a
Oh, that
friend.
rocks.
Yeah.
I love them. I love them. I love the Fresno Nightcrawlers. They're
Yeah.
very cute.
The jammy bottoms.
Um, yeah,
They're so cute.
yeah. Big pants.
What's the venue? The theater in
I don't remember. Here's the thing. I could go into my Facebook message chat with Christy and just like scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll.
yeah. It should be a surprise. What are we doing?
I'll as soon as I have it, I'll tell you.
Oh, thank you.
I just forgot it.
Can you give me 2 numbers between 1 and 7?
Yeah.
Inclusive.
4
4? Yes.
and
Yes, you talked about that.
yeah, 4 is a good number for me.
Yeah.
And let's do 7. I like 7. You said
I love it.
inclusive, right?
4? Yes, precisely. Oh, that's great. That's great. We also had a little jumper over here. I'm gonna switch back to this
Okay.
scene.
A little jump out.
We had a little jumpy.
Frank,
So
I was raised by the page of wands. I was actually raised by the devil, it turns out. That's just a little joke. That's just a little tarot humor. That's tarot humor. That's a joke you can tell because I actually have a positive association with the devil card.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, I mean that's another fun thing. This deck doesn't have any sort of like, it's also open. That's one of the big myths I try my best to dispel. Whenever someone's like, "Well, am I gonna learn some bad news?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
Are you expecting bad news? Like, there's not a bad news card."
It does though. It always reminds me of that very funny tweet of someone who's like, the old lady pulls a tarot card that is a picture of someone in a hot air balloon crashing into an electrical wire. Me. So is that good? I think it's a pretty funny tweet.
Thank you so much for resubscribing, Steve Earl Sweatshirt. That is a very funny
Stare Pander
tweet.
23 hella to you.
Forgot to turn off alerts, so I missed
It's
the
good.
last.
I like that. Was that Yamcha? That just showed up?
Yeah, that's Yamcha.
Hell yeah.
Being afraid to talk to pretty girls. I love Yamcha. I love Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
And the sound.
Did you watch Super? Did you enjoy Super?
I watched all of Super as it was airing, and I cried. I'm a big fan of Super. I like what they did. Yeah,
A couple of points.
yeah. And when Toriyama passed, I was devastated for like a whole week. And
Absolutely.
yeah, that was.
Yeah.
I love that you say that. I actually just I needed ankle socks. I needed small socks because I'm sick of. I have too many long socks with holes, so I just needed new socks. Anyway, found myself inside of a GameStop. Found myself looking at a pair of Pokemon First Gen and Dragon Ball Z ankle socks.
Sick.
So there you go.
Keru, so I love Dragon Ball Z. I actually did not get to watch Dragon Ball Z until my adulthood. Because I was not allowed to watch anime except for Pokemon when I was a kid. So all of the anime, all the classic anime, I had to come to as an adult. I did not watch Naruto all the way through till I was an adult. I did not watch Bleach until I was an adult. I did not watch basically any of them. I just was allowed to watch Pokemon as a kid because I think I was just like, I think my parents understood like there was too much like if they like I have to be able to watch this one about the cool monsters. I have to be able to watch that, but no, in general I was not. Thank you, CJ.
Yeah.
Frankie, I actually don't really know Bible Black. Which one's Bible Black? Is that a pornographic one? I don't understand the joke, Frankie.
Frankie, no one
Okay,
understands your
alright.
humor. This is impossible to.
Get him! Get him!
Incomprehensible. Don't worry, it's just kayfabe. Am I using it correctly? I'm such a nerd.
His ass.
Okay, so do you want to see the first card,
Yeah, let's do it.
or did we want to learn about
Let's do it.
Frankie's
Let's do it.
having to explain punchline?
Do we want to learn about Frankie's favorite pornographic anime, or do we want to see? Do we want to see?
And with that energy and intention, let's flip the first card. New consciousness. I love this. I love that this was the.
Okay.
I kind of see this as the thesis. The first card is usually like a thesis. New consciousness. Immediately, I'm just thinking about your contribution, like your intention with this show. Like that's immediately what pops into my head. It's like
The art is really nice.
it's beautiful. David Cow is the artist. Really cool. And I'll read from the book just so you get like a really robust reading. And I'm not shameful about reading from the book, but
No, I'll read. I'm going to read from the book later when I pull cards for you.
please, yes. And this will be a 4-card reading, I guess, because normally what I do is 2 1/3 that sometimes bridges. But you had a 4th jumper, which is great because you have that relationship with the number 4, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, immediately. A flower reaching toward the sun. This wonderful project that you've got. This seed that has been planted and is now sprouting beautifully and being received, and all the sunshine. This is starting to sound like a sermon. All the sunshine from the positive reception is shining down and nurturing this beautiful flower that you've planted. It's really exciting.
I like that. That's very nice.
So we've got Earth Present. There's 4 suits to this deck, and they have to do with time, past, present, future, and parallel. Where is that for? Parallel. So this is Earth Present. This is what we're living through right now. Just as a metaphor, within the Earth Present, there is this big push for a new consciousness. We talked about that earlier with the. I kept using the word integrity. I guess that's how this transition.
Yeah.
What a cool first card. Let me get it.
I think here's. Oh no, go ahead.
I was gonna find the page, but go on.
Oh, I was gonna say I think it's interesting that you use the word transition, especially as we think about transness and we think about queerness and we think about new consciousness and we think about the sort of the death of the old and the birth of the new, but not necessarily in the context of physical death, but in terms of like spiritual death, dead names, former identities. I talked a little bit about being raised in a specific way and having to break out of that and learn out of that. Like there are versions of me that do not exist anymore in the current versions of me. And we die and are reborn in lots of ways. So new consciousness, I think also specifically as it relates to sort of like just being trans, being a person who values growth and who is trying to be different in every moment. Basically every moment that I'm alive, I'm trying to be a little bit different than the moment that I was before. It seems also is very resonates. Oh, actually, CJ, good fucking point. The flower. Hold on, wait.
Yes, what's happening? What a cool chair. Oh my god. Huh?
The jar from the show, it wasn't just a jar, it's also a flower, right? It's also like the jar that we were gifted in the investigation is not just a jar. There's a flower in there. There was a zinnia in there. That's a crucial part of that's a crucial part of the gift. That's a crucial part of the thing. And like I keep this because this is a very precious magical object to me. This jar that was gifted. If you watch the pilot, this is part of the thing that sort of sets us off on this crazy ball of synchronicities. But like this is, it's not just a jar. It is a jar with a flower in it, and sort of thinking about a new flower.
Oh, I love that.
Energetically is like very, very sort of keyed into not just the show, but like the parts of the show that sort of felt the most sort of like magically charged and magically resonant.
Oh, I love that. And I love what Steve says here in the chat. You can harvest seeds from there to make more flowers. Very cool.
Absolutely.
I just of note, this is a very special. It is special, I will say, instead of it's not special. 54, smack dab in the middle of the deck. It's 108 cards. It's a cyclical deck. It starts with the idea of all consciousness being one. All of it just,
Yeah.
or source, as a lot of people refer to it. Everything is connected. Everything is together. And as it sort of breathes outward and expands, there arises difference,
Yeah.
discussion, learning, argument, polarization, uh, variety. And then at 54, that's the midway point. So that's
Yeah.
referring to this very present moment, especially on Earth, the very polarized energy. Seems like nobody can get along, etc. But that also
Yeah.
means that the pendulum swings, and we are able to uh, breathe back into some perspective of unity as much as we have
Yeah.
a perspective of difference.
And we are, to connect it, we are exactly at the halfway point of our crowdfund currently.
Perfect.
A lot of things in progress, but I also, even just as a show, as a production, I feel very like it has come out, it's released, but I'm not done. I'm not like, I can't chill out yet. I have all of this, like, I still feel like there's a lot of work, but it's a different kind of work. And it's
Yeah.
sort of like the work that it took to make is different than the work that it took to edit, is different than the work that it's taking now to sort of talk about and get it out there and get it in front of people.
How are you
It
doing?
is I'm so tired. I'm
Yeah.
so tired because also, like, again, I was talking about, like, organizing for Palestine is very exhausting work. It's very hard to organize against the state. It's also very hard to do all this stuff. At the furry convention, I gave myself a little 3-card poll, and the middle question I asked was like, "Hey, when do I get to take a break? Like, when can I chill out a little bit? Like, when can I relax?" And the card that I pulled was like, "Agile feet, keep on moving, got stuff to do." And I was like, oh, "Okay, for sure. Thanks, Deck. Thank you. Thank you for that. I will thank you for that. Cool."
A little extra bit
Um,
of motivation, I guess.
yeah, I do want to point out Frankie's trying to do a Studio 54 on Sunset Strip.
That
Um,
Frankie, I tell you.
joke, all right, yeah, for sure. Yeah, Frankie gets view count updates 5 times a day because the view count goes up, Frankie. Because it's going up because people keep watching the show, and that feels like good news, I think. But if you don't want good news, that's fine. Frankie, Franklin.
Can we help inform the viewers of your relationship to Frankie Franklin and
Oh
their
yeah, I love Frankie. Frankie's one of my dearest and oldest friends. I've known Frankie. Frankie has known me through some of the worst versions of myself, and he's still here, and I will appreciate that truly for the entirety. Frankie is enough of a straight man that when I say I love you, Frankie, a thing that I do, he gets all like weird about it. It's very cute.
I love doing that.
And also a near and dear friend that I love very, very much, who also is executive producing on my show, has been integral in both research for like lore stuff, and also just like getting like permits and figuring out the actual things that we need to shoot stuff, all things like that. Frankie puts a lot of effort into this show, and I appreciate Frankie very much. So I pretend to get mad at Frankie sometimes because it's funny, but I'm not. Frankie is a near and dear friend who I love very, very much. Let's see what Frankie has said in response to all this. I'm the EP. I do things like try to get the right to quotes for dead authors' books and explain production insurance.
Wow.
That's also one that Frankie does.
Cool. Well, we love you having you here in the studio with
Yeah.
us, Frankie.
In Studio 54.
Studio 54. There it is. There we are. Okay, I'm gonna try to make this as exciting and engaging as possible as I read from this book.
I think you're doing a great job so far.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I've never had an actual like guest on or like an interview type format, and it's a bit of a dream come true. You're an absolutely stellar first guest, so thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm having a blast.
Right. Earth 54, new consciousness present. There is a new consciousness being born on Earth right now. It has to do with the true nature of existence beyond belief, thought, or emotion. This new consciousness is sprouting from our beings like a flower reaching toward the sun. But we often obstruct it by clinging to our distractions, such as opinion, drama, or blame. We must become the flower reaching toward the sun and value it above all else if we are to transform as a species. Take a few moments every day to visualize yourself as that flower reaching toward that sun. Let the sun nourish you and give you everything that you need. You're a star.
And it's, I think, a really interesting thing too for me, and that is that I have in the last couple months I've been really thinking about this is gonna sound so stupid when I say it, but you gotta let me explain it. I've been thinking a lot about the sun as it relates to my life and sort of my existence. And there are parts of me I've spent a lot of my life being like a person at nighttime, right? Stand-up comedy is a nighttime thing. A lot of paranormal stuff is nighttime things. I have a lot of, I am a sober person now, but I used to spend a lot of time at bars, on there till close, all this sort of stuff, right? I've sort of been active at night for a lot of my adult life, for a lot of my life, and just thinking about myself in the daytime. In the last couple years, I've gotten really into foraging. I'm doing more like daytime activities, and sort of that has become a part of my life. And I was talking to someone, and they pointed out, so my eyes change color in the sunlight. If you
Ah,
shine sunlight on them, they change colors. And someone was like, "That's a very like sun thing. That's like you have to be in the sun for that to happen. This cool thing that happens with your body." And so I was thinking about myself sort of as I relate to the sun and the daytime, and I had this sort of thing where I was like, yeah, but I like the nighttime. I like all of this stuff. I like this version of existing. And is this sort of like, well, everything's in flux. Like I don't have to pick one. I don't have to choose the day or the night. I can be a multifaceted person who does a lot of things. And that might sound like very obvious and very silly, but I've like it just sounds very stupid to be like, I've been thinking about the sun a lot.
it sounds
I have been
awesome.
thinking about this. I've been thinking about the sun a lot as it sort of relates to my life. So
Yeah.
this is it's interesting.
Well, that's
Yeah,
very
very
cool.
moon-based life. Thank you, Frankie.
Yeah, I think the sun's been thinking a bit about you, probably. There's a lot going on, and I think the sun gets a bad rap sometimes because of the current literal climate that we're living in.
Well,
But
yeah,
it's
that's not
there,
the sun's fault.
right?
That's not the sun's fault. That's a
Precisely.
lot. That's a handful of jerks in business suits. That's their fault.
Right, right. There's a different direction in which to point our gaze. And
Yeah.
speaking of,
I mean, do not gaze at the sun. That's important. This comes up on Psychic Friends all the time. Someone will be like, "Do you know what sun gazing?" There's a woo thing where people are like, "It's actually good for you to gaze at the sun."
oh,
Do not gaze at the sun. Do not gaze at the sun. I cannot stress this enough. Bad to gaze at the sun.
wow.
But there's a number of people who are like, "It's good for your eyeballs." It's like, no, it's actually the opposite of that.
We here at pandarsera.television.org.edu do not endorse
Yeah.
looking directly at the sun, chat.
Don't look at the sun.
Don't.
Can't stress. You think that you wouldn't have to explain that to people, but no, you do. As it turns out,
That is an interesting thing.
People not to gaze at the sun.
Isn't it fun whenever you get really excited about something that's woo, and then the next day you learn about someone in that very community who really just like makes it hard to defend, kind of
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Well, anywho, there's a whole bunch of commentary, but your personal connection with what you just said, I think, is something great to focus on. Anything that you feel inspired by like the initial paragraph of book text, I think that's a great springing off point. Are you interested in the next card?
Yeah, let's do it.
Woo! We've got an Essassani parallel card. Let's go. Leaving home, 104. Ooh, both fours.
Okay.
2 4s already. That's very exciting. Let's appreciate the art for a little bit. We've
I
got...
like the art very much.
So Essassani refers to a future hybrid of humans and Zetas, and a bunch of other beings. It just sort of like archetypally like a hybrid.
Okay.
Liminal. There's a lot going on there. Essassani, our wonderful teachers, will notice that the suit is parallel, so we're not dealing with like this is the past of the Essassani civilization, this is the future.
Okay.
It's just sort of like they're around. It's a little more interdimensional feeling. Very Fae-like, if
Okay.
I dare say. They might disagree with me and make a distinction there.
Okay.
But just look at the drawing. I mean, that really does invoke a lot of certain types of
definitely
folkloric
feel-
imagery to humans.
Absolutely.
I
What is
think.
the thing in above that is sort of joining between these two?
So it's
Or is it just sort of
pretty
like colors
abstract.
and shape?
It's
cool.
a beautiful rainbow, but the shape I wish this would focus a little better. I'm saving up for better cameras, but
For sure.
and we'll glean that from the text. But initially, what I'm getting is just the title of the card is "Leaving Home." This seems to be some sort of location, like the idea of a location. Which could initially be associated with stability, something that we're used to, routine, something that we've grown comfortable repeating day in and day out. And then the idea of wanderlust or branching out or changing the idea of home, changing the idea of family.
Yeah.
These deep primal things, so to speak.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
gonna,
definitely.
yeah.
Oh yeah, no. I want to hear what the book has to say.
Okay. If you've got anything bubbling up inside, feel free to burp it
Well,
out.
it's interesting that you said changing the idea of family because I've said a couple of times. So we in 2 weeks on the first weekend of August we are going to be releasing the bonus episode that we did with Ray Wise from Twin Peaks. That's coming out in 2 weeks. And one of the things that family comes up a lot is, of course, that whole investigation. And it's very interesting because we're doing with Ray and Kaina, who is his daughter, and so we really got focused on this idea. And we're talking about Kaina's grandparents. We're talking about Ray's one of Ray's uncles. We have all Ray tells us a ghost story that he experienced that I don't think he's told in any other interview, which is like very cool. It's a very
Oh.
cool first thing, which is very exciting. But we talk a lot about family, and specifically one of the things though is that I think we really got locked into this idea of blood family and blood relation.
Hmm.
And in the second interview day, Rose and I sort of have this revelation, like, we're the gay ghost show. Like, that's not, family doesn't always mean that to our community, to the community that we're representing. And so we started expanding it into chosen family and what family can mean. And I think that really sort of allows the investigation in the second day to really springboard into sort of new and sort of deep and sort of emotionally resonant territory. So the idea of changing what family can mean, the idea of changing how we perceive family conceptually, is very resonant with this show, specifically with the bonus episode that we are releasing in about a week and a half. So
That is,
that's just sort of what immediately jumped out to me.
thank you for sharing that. That's so cool. Like, yes. I don't ever want to project or be like, well, hold on, let me tell you what this means for you. It's like, oh my God, it means so much to you, just, and letting it flow. And that's so exciting. And, well, now I'm going to read.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so the Essassani, as I mentioned, that's these guys, a cross between humans and Zetas, and we can talk about Zetas in a second if we want to brush up on that, or if you're.
I would love to brush up. I'm cannot pretend to understand.
We all know a cross between human. So I'll do that just really quickly. So
Sure, yeah.
hey, what do you think of when you think of an alien in pop culture? Like.
Me or the chat?
Just culturally, just us as people, I guess. And generally, it's that almond-shaped, big eyes.
Yeah, like the gray alien. Yeah.
Gray, right? Or what we call the gray aliens and stuff. So the Zetas are just Zeta Reticuli is a binary star system out yonder, which way in the sky, and. So when we talk about the Zetas in the context of these cards and stuff, it refers to the civilization, and it can be a collective. Symbolically, usually in pop culture, it's represented by what we determine to be that gray alien imagery, and we have a lot of uncertainty about that. Wait, are they clones? Are they robots? Are they us from a different?
Right. Yeah.
Time period or something, and there's a lot of things that are asserted by different people. For the purposes of these cards, it basically just means like there's a kinship there.
Okay.
Us and them, they're like a parallel,
some sort of connection. Yeah.
Yeah, and they evolved in a certain way. It left their planet in a certain way, and so now they're reaching out and visiting others in certain ways. Oh,
okay.
Immediately just started dropping frames as soon as I tried to start like imposing limitations on the narrative of the Zetas.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anywho, I can stop it at like kinship. They're just a little bit different, but there was a lot of survival and there's a lot of reaching out in an attempt to connect to humans.
Yeah.
And share knowledge, share understanding. And that's where a lot of the abduction phenomenon kind of comes from, or at least like certain authors and researchers like posit that. So just all we need to know right now for this card is that the Essassani can be seen as a cross between humans and Zetas.
Okay.
They eventually had to integrate all their lessons, evolve as a species, and leave home. So we're talking about leaving home with this card. Yeah. Walk into their own future and find their own path. Humanity is facing this challenge now as we struggle to find ourselves. You too are at this crucial nexus point of evolution. This is a beautiful yet bittersweet place to be. You must do your spiritual homework, make conscious and courageous choices, and find your own path. Do not fear who you truly are. This represents the potential for a new birth and the importance of consciously creating your future, starting now. Oh my gosh. And tying that directly in with new consciousness, talking about new births, new beginnings, embarking on an adventure.
And so much of that too is, again, launching a thing, launching any new project, specifically this one that is about identity, that is about being connected to being connected to stories in the past, being connected to things down the line. My favorite thing I think about synchronicity is this idea that something can happen that you don't register as meaningful
Yes.
or relevant until 3 months later when someone says a thing and you're like, wait, shit, that's been here. I'll how much do I want to get into this? I've said this. We can say it. I've said it. I have, and I think I've told you this over chat. I have for over 10 years, I have been haunted by a name. By a name, I've been getting wrong number phone calls. I've been getting wrong number phone calls from Bay Area phone numbers asking for the name Robert Graves. People ask, "Is this Robert Graves?" It's not Robert Graves. And so for a long time, I was just like, oh, it's just like some old person named Robert Graves, some old dude named Robert Graves who has a similar phone number to me. And so for the longest time, I've been just getting these. And it's just like a daily thing. It happens basically every day. I get phone calls for Robert Graves. I was talking to Mortellus, who we're dealing with for episode 2. I was talking to them just over chat. And, a Ghost Bro, I'll get there. I was talking to Mortellus over chat about Dionysus and this idea of like, I think I have this presence in my life that is divine. I think that this divinity has been working with me and keeping me safe and protecting me and sort of engaging with me in my practice without me knowing about it. And I'm finally sort of getting into this, like, what does that mean? What does it mean to, like, especially as a sober person, what does it mean to be sort of engaging in this idea of working with Dionysus? And Mortellus was like, oh, you should read this comic book. It's called Wicked X Divine. It's about the gods in a fun way. I read it, and then the second trade paperback of it, one of the characters, who is this character's place is that they've been like controlling metaphysical narratives for humans for a number of years, and this character's like, I was the white goddess that influenced Robert Graves. And I was like, hold up. And so I hit up Mortellus and I was like, hey, who is Robert Graves? And they're like, oh, like, I wouldn't be much of a neo-pagan if I didn't know that name. And so I start looking into it. Robert Graves wrote a poem called The White Goddess that is like a cornerstone foundational text for Gardnerian Wicca and like Western neo-paganism. And so this is this huge thing. And now for 10 years, I've been getting phone calls that are like, is this Robert Graves? Is Robert Graves there? Is this Robert Graves? And I've been like, no, who the fuck is that?
Wow.
And then suddenly, based on going down a path with a god that I feel like I'm working with and connected to, and the person who I'm like, oh, we're going to shoot episode 2 with this person, all of those things lead me to this, like, oh, this is like this weird, honestly spooky name that has been haunting me for 10 fucking years is now tied into this greater sort of thing. And I'm like, what does that mean? And then it gets even scarier, a little bit in like an actually scary way. So I talked to the filmmaker that we shot the pilot with, who, right now we're working with Will from Strange Bird Productions. Really good. We worked with Andy from Superhuman for the pilot, and then he's super busy. He's got a lot of he works on a lot of music documentaries and a lot of stuff. So we worked on the pilot. I'm so proud of the pilot. We're working with Strange Bird now. But I was talking to Andy at the time, and I was like, yeah, I was telling him this crazy like synchronicity thing. And he's like, oh, I've been having a synchronicity. I'm like, oh, for sure. Like, what is it? And he's like, people keep saying this. And then he talks about one of the First Nations folklore figures that you're not supposed to say by name. And so I'm like, oh, don't say that. And he's like, well, that's what keeps happening. He's like, someone will say it, and I'll be like, what is that? And someone else will be like, we're not supposed to talk about that. I was like, well, you could Google it, but that's fine. I was like, so I filled him in. I'm just like, yeah, this is this, here's some of the lore. Here's what it is. And I'm like, yeah, and there's a ranch named after this being in Utah. And get off the phone. 1 hour later, 1 hour after that phone call, I get a phone call from a Utah phone number. Now, every Robert Graves call I had ever gotten in the past up until that point had been from California Bay Area phone numbers. This is a call from a Utah phone number, and I pick up the phone, and they're like, you're in tax trouble, which is a very easy way to immediately scare me. That's a fear response, right? And I'm like, uh-oh, what did I do? What have I done? And they're like, well, we need to talk to you about your property in Utah. And I'm like, I don't own property in Utah. And they're like, is this not Robert Graves? So that is an hour after I talk about this ranch in Utah, this ranch in Utah named after this being that Andy keeps hearing people talk about. And I'm like, don't do that. Don't talk about that. And then here's the first ever Robert Graves call, not from California. And so that, to me, is genuinely very scary. That's a scary thing. I don't know if I can ever go to Utah again, is the trick.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
Yeah, but it also feels like a trap.
Yeah. Well, follow your heart. Yeah.
We'll figure it out. Maybe, I don't know.
That's exciting, though. And I'm sorry that it's scary, but it's like, that's a good story.
It's a cool scary. It's a cool scary.
Yeah, it is an alluring.
But specifically, it ties into this idea of like the past and the future, right? And the sort of like bridging, like you get a wrong number call for years of your life, and you don't understand the relevance of it or why it's important. Yes. Or why it's spooky even, and then all of a sudden all of these things happen in quick succession. It's like, not only is that important, not only does that feel like something poking you in your forehead a bunch, also be careful, because here's a threat display.
Yeah, sure. Oh, that's very exciting. Let me get this third card. I love that you went right into the Robert Graves thing, because I wanted to talk about that, and I like that one of the cards inspired you to do so. That's very exciting.
It felt very like the past and the future and the bridge and sort of existing. It felt very very connected.
I like that. I like this. I like the story that's playing out.
Okay.
What have we got here? Unfinished business.
Okay.
The journey's not over. I mean, it's oftentimes I feel like the readings are very like, they're just so obvious and self-explanatory, I guess, to the subject or the recipient or something. And immediately, serious. Oh, also another present card. We don't have any past or future. It's just like, this is what's happening right now. It's very exciting. Unfinished business. Serious. Sirius, great teachers. I always need to brush up on Sirius. I know that there's like associations with water. I know that Sirius energy is often manifested in terms of our cetaceans, like the playfulness and wisdom of dolphins and whales, the understanding of a group collective consciousness and the lessons that can be learned from that. Also with that comes the pros and cons of mentorship, of knowing when to teach and when to learn, the give and take reciprocity of exchanging knowledge. Unfinished business. This is really exciting. Let me read from the book. Unless you have something that is percolating.
I didn't have the immediate. So let's see what the
Blue Dog Star. Oh, that's right. Well, Hellier loves the Mylar balloons. Blue Star. I love. God, boy, was I seeing a lot of Mylar balloons after those seasons got really popular. And
same.
Yeah, it's.
I mean, it's a great song by Psychic TV as well.
Oh, cool. 59. Unfinished business present. The ancient Assyrians believed that they left some things unfinished. Mostly, this has to do with the evolution of the human race. Many of these ancient beings have incarnated as humans now in order to complete the tasks they feel were left undone. Other serious beings are helping from the unseen realms. If you feel that you have unfinished business in your life or a nagging feeling that you're supposed to do something, pay attention to what that is teaching you about self-acceptance. Pay attention to what that nagging feeling is teaching you about self-acceptance. Excuse me. The lesson is that you are complete in every moment. If you were supposed to do something, then it would be done. That's a fun thing to think about. I'm just gonna kind of skim through the commentary.
Yeah. It's got me thinking a little bit about our conversation from before about like the
Yeah,
idea of like healthy or good person or whatever. This idea of
yeah,
seeking to be a thing rather than sort of doing things and sort of being represented by the things you do in any moment, and not sort of not approaching things from this goal of I want to attain some sort of form, but instead approaching sort of things in the moment and the things that you're doing, being very, very conscious about like what you're doing at any given moment for the thing itself, and not whatever the goal is. Making art for art's sake, not to be consumed, not to be sold, just sort of making things and existing in the space of like creation without the sort of the goal. And that's also interesting to me because it sort of goes to the thing I was saying before about like about to like um I lost my train of thought. The thing I was the genuineness of recording something, right? The
ah,
genuineness of recording something, and how like it is real and it's not, because it's through sort of this idea of like the camera, and the camera adds a level of sort of being slightly fictional, even if you're not making things up or not writing things in a fictional sort of way. And there's sort of like the balance of like existing in the moment.
yes,
To
journey being the destination.
Yeah,
That sort
well,
of vibe. Yeah, and it just reminds me again of how cool the show is, or just I have just personally. I deal with anxiety about going out and participating in the world sometimes, and I have ideas for adventures, but how long is it going to take for me to rev up my confidence to go and
totally.
seek out that which is to be experienced? Um,
Yeah.
that's very cool. Yes, I think you. I don't need to talk too much about the commentary. Yeah, um, yeah. Examining your life honestly. Is there something that feels like it needs completion, but it may already be in the process of being completed? If the sense of unfinished business is more subtle, go deep within. No matter what happens, know that when you follow the flow of life and meet all challenges with integrity instead of running from them, any unfinished business that is carried has a tendency to resolve itself easily. It is only when there is resistance that we postpone the inevitable. Keep that in mind as you navigate this human life. Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And
This feels very, it definitely feels resonant. It definitely feels
oh, good.
makes sense.
Good. I'm very glad. I'm very glad. You have a gift over here. You have a little bonus.
What?
You have a little bonus fourth card that jumped right
Okay.
out as I was shuffling.
All right.
These jumpers are really fun. What's this?
Okay.
Whoop! Hey, we got the Zetas returning the favor, another present card, and we get to dive a little deeper into the Zetas. It's exciting.
Yeah.
Returning the favor. Oh my God. And immediately, I just think of what we were talking about earlier, that exchange of information. You're giving such a
Yeah.
gift to the world. And I am so excited to log right into your Seed and Spark right after this and choose a tier just to be more involved. And there are so
I
many
appreciate that very much.
incentives.
Thank you, brother. We have a lot of very cool incentives that I think, our goal is to get people to feel sort of involved and be involved with this thing that we're making, in as sort of it is a collaborative. Art in general is collaborative, but specifically I think, paranormal stuff is so like, we're reading books, we're learning about history, we're sort of involving ourselves, the whole sort of premise, the way that I've sort of talked about the show is I want to meet weird people
Yeah.
who feel drawn to something weird, and then I want to take those weird people and we're going to like look for the weird thing. Like that's the sort of that is the goal, and as many people as we can sort of bring along with us and sort of explore and expand our own understanding. And that just feels very, it feels very resonant, and
And
specifically I just made a TikTok about this yesterday, where as very obvious engagement bait, I was like, "Hey, show me your favorite magical object," because I
Yeah.
want people to show me, and I would never pretend that's not engagement bait. It is certainly engagement bait. That said, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say
Oh,
sure, but like that's also an
um,
honest. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, it's an engagement bait where I genuinely want to see the thing that people are showing. It's
Yeah.
cool. But I have a little necklace that I wear that's a bell on a chain, and it is a bell that I found in the middle of my floor several years after moving to this place. That it didn't fall off of anything. It didn't come up through the floorboards. I don't know where it came from. I have no idea where it came from because it just appeared in the middle of the floor, and that is not traditionally what bells do. For anyone paying attention, that is not really how bells do it. And I will sometimes go out and I will leave a little bowl of like cream and honey out as like for fae and for nature spirits and for whatever is sort of existing in the space. You know, we have a cute little garden box. You can't eat food out of the ground where we are because
Mm.
of the lead content.
Mm.
So we built a raised garden bed that we grow herbs and snow sugar snap peas and stuff like that in.
Oh.
And so that feels like a very sort of sweet naturey space. And so I will leave my little bowl of cream and honey, and usually it just sits out and the ants get to it eventually and I wash it out. Sometimes it gets completely like cleaned. Sometimes out there it just like everything is consumed and cleaned, not like an animal, but like it's actually like milk and honey is gone and
Oh.
nothing's there, which is wild to me. I
Wow.
don't know, sure. But that to me, that is a gift, and this bell has always felt like a gift, and it has sort of felt like a sweet gift from whatever. And so the sort of like returning the favor conceptually, this idea sort of is very resonant to me too, especially as I've been thinking about this bell, as I've been thinking about things that appear and disappear, things that are sort of taken and then given back. We dealt with that a lot when we were out shooting with Ray. This didn't make the cut, so you won't be able to hear about this on the actual episode, but you can hear about it now as I'm talking about it. um Shit kept vanishing and then appearing when we were shooting. um Before when we got there, Jules lost their phone charger. They could not find it, and then suddenly a different phone charger appeared in Kaina's house.
Mm.
That was not Kaina's. Kaina doesn't know who it was. It was not Jules's phone charger, but it was a phone charger with a little piece of tape attached to it with the name Jules written on it. Whose is it?
Whoa.
Why is that? Almost as if like, oh, I know you're missing your charger. Here's a different one that literally has Jules's name on it that's not theirs because that wasn't their charger. So that was crazy. There was a point where Jules and Rosa went into the back house, walked a straight line to get into this back house, and then on their way out could not walk the same straight line again because the vacuum cleaner that they had been looking for and could not find was right in their path. And none of the rest of us had been out there. We had just been in the house. So like a really consistent thing that happened throughout shooting was things would appear and disappear. Which to me, I was thinking a lot about this bell because it just appeared, right? This idea of like appearing, disappearing, things apparating and disapparating. And so this idea of being gifted things being taken, returning the favor, gifting the favor, favors out, all of these things is very resonant to me, especially as we are in the middle of this crowdfund where I'm asking people for a favor, like help me make this thing. And in return, we have these backer incentives, and also in return, here's this thing that I think is going to be cool and fun to watch. And it's like favors for favors feels very much like crowdsourcing, making things, all of that.
Some of my favorite like crowdfunding and Patreons to support are witchy people and paranormal people because they imbue so much energy and intention into something that they might send you in the mail, or I can almost see it in their penmanship, like on the packaging. Like there's a very special energy to it, which I really appreciate. Let me read some dry. No, this isn't that dry.
Dry. I have liked it.
Yeah. This is by Lisa Royal Holt, who is a great author, channeler. I've just really enjoyed her books over the last several years of my life. Fun to research. Returning the favor. We're talking about the Zeta Reticuli in the present. So again, big themes. They felt like they were facing an extinction. They had sort of advanced technology in favor over natural spirituality, emotions, that sensitivity. Okay. It was like, we have extremely advanced science and yet our world, it was taking like a punishment for it, or there's
Totally.
there's that give and take, and they almost sometimes mythologically or archetypally represent a possible future for us. So a lot of things exist as a warning culturally. We start seeing a lot of UFO sightings right after we started testing nuclear weapons, things like that, where it's like
That makes sense.
setting off alarm bells, like, hey, we tried that. Like, whoa,
Bad direction to go down.
yeah,
for sure.
yeah. So it's, yeah. And of course, nobody has to believe in any of this. It can just be stories for you, but it's fun to think about. And I think the information can inspire a lot of interesting thoughts. So,
A lot of times. Oh no. Good.
oh, what were you
I'll
going to
say it
say?
afterwards. I'll say it after.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I'll say it after. I'll say it.
Are you going to remember it?
I will.
Okay. Okay. During the darkest time of Zeta history, when they thought their species would be extinct, humans helped them. This immense and selfless gift will never be forgotten. Now, that refers to, again, what I said, like the contact, like abduction.
Yeah.
Is it against the person's will, or is there sort of we were talking about that mutual agreement, I guess that's subconscious when it comes to an attachment or an unwanted experience or something. It's tricky.
I want to jump in just very quickly.
Please.
To say another immense gift that will never be forgotten. The pull up. Nightingale DJ just pledged to our crowdfund. Another immense gift that will never be forgotten. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful. Thank you for
Just
helping
now?
us make season or episode 2 just now.
Oh,
just now
awesome.
I got the email. So actually it was 40 minutes ago. But I didn't see the email.
Why, that's just now.
I see it now. and that is just now to me because I'm just now seeing the notification. But Nightingale, thank you so much. I genuinely really appreciate that. It's like every person who puts in and helps us make this episode 2, helps us make this show is just it is. I like to think of myself as a person who's pretty good with words, and I struggle with them sometimes because it's just deeply very meaningful to me that people are helping us make this. So thank you very much.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you for that. Selfless gift that will never be forgotten, immense and selfless. Now that their species has passed through this crisis, now that the crowdfund has passed through this midway point, the Zetas are returning the favor by offering us their wisdom, help, and love in a variety of ways. This is a connections card, which means that you have a connection to the Zeta race, and their energy is available to you in this life to tap into on your spiritual path. Of course, that's completely open to you, whether or not you choose to accept. Mm-hmm. You have also had at least one lifetime as a Zeta, if you choose to accept. This is just like Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
Open yourself
That's
to...
how I'm always describing the paranormal.
Yeah.
Just like Mission Impossible.
Yeah. And my tape recorder is going to explode after...
Oh, no.
God, this is so fun. I'm just cracking the corniest jokes. Open yourself to their energy and prepare for your heart to expand. So that's the last sentence of that. If you've pulled this card, it's likely that perhaps a Zeta being from this era is working with you as a way to pay it forward. You let yourself accept this guidance, even if it is only subtle and you can't feel it. Know it is given with much love. Beautiful. And it also talks about, conversely, it could, there's a give and take with returning a favor. It can go in all sorts of directions. And do you, that was going to be another question I had. And now this is, it might not be the right question to ask. I was thinking about this in the shower this morning. This gender will self-destruct.
Really funny comment by Argyle. Thank you.
I love that. This gender will self-destruct in 3, 2. A lot of times people talk about a trinity in terms of paranormal investigation with extraterrestrials, ghosts, so to speak, spirits, etc., and then cryptids, cryptozoology, etc. Do you have any sort of personal history with this triptych? Is it unproductive of me to even frame it with such a structure? What are your thoughts?
I don't think it's unproductive. I think any conversation about it is productive and very interesting. It's actually funny that you sort of bring that up, because the immediate place that my brain goes when you're talking about a connection or being guided by non-human races, non-human beings. I think about the writings of John Keel talking about how this group of beings have called themselves fairies, have called themselves gods, have called themselves any number of things, and now they are presenting themselves as UFOs. That is what John Keel thinks. And also, he was so paranoid about it in a very funny way. It was very much like, and what do they want from us? I was like,
Yeah.
all right, you cool it, bud.
Yeah.
Why don't you chill out a little bit? It's all right. But this idea of the different things that we call things, and I think that there is I think that there is like I think that there is sort of a dangerous way to approach, not dangerous but disrespectful way to approach that. And I don't mean disrespectful to the beings, I mean disrespectful to the cultures that people believed in that are not our own cultures. I say this, my dad got really alien pilled by that what is that book, that guy who just got his Netflix show canceled for being a shithead. Thank you for tuning in, the Nerd of Her. Definitely check out the show if you get a chance, and leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. There's a guy who just got his. There's a guy, Graham Hancock.
Yeah.
Graham Hancock just
Yeah.
got his Netflix show canceled for being a shithead. For being disrespectful to a number of indigenous people. My dad got really alien pilled by one of his books. And my dad was like, everything that any culture has called a god was secretly aliens. And I'm like, damn, that's kind of a shit ass thing to say about stuff that cultures believe in,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
My dad also thought this was so fucking funny. My dad, in the book, that he, like, Graham talks about, like, flash freezes. He's like, flash freeze happened and that killed Atlantis, and that's why we don't have records of their technology.
Ah.
And my dad was like, I need to get tattoos all over my body that's like instructions on how to make a microwave oven or whatever. And I was like, this man does not, you have never got a tattoo in your life, and now you're talking about getting arguably the stupidest tattoos of all time, which is just instructions on how to make things on the off chance that there is a flash freeze. And also, do you think that your weird bad body is going to survive better than like a big rock? Write it down on like a big rock or something. Like, so many things are more likely to survive than the weird bad body of my father. Anyway,
that is fascinating.
I think that there is sort of
Sorry.
Yeah,
that's fascinating.
No, I think that there is sort of a disrespectful way to talk about gods and other things that people believe in based, on like, oh, it's actually aliens or it's actually whatever. But I do think that and for me in my personal life, because to me I think a lot of the paranormal, a lot of the magic is so idiosyncratic, idiosynchronous, you might even say. Oofta. I think everything is so idiosyncratic, so that if to me the resonant is like thinking about guidance and being guided, because I have said for a long time that I feel very guided and sort of connected to Dionysus as a figure, as a guiding figure, as a sort of a parental figure, as a sort of a meaningful connection to me. So if you're saying that, if my touchstone for a lot of stuff is a John Keel book that says gods are aliens, and you're telling me that there is an alien working with me, and I'm like, well, I feel like there's a god working with me.
Yeah.
And I have this moment where like that sort of makes that connection to me. And none of this stuff. I say a lot of things that I think people would be like, that's a crazy thing you just said. You're a crazy person.
Same. Yeah.
And that's fine. Maybe that's true. But I don't, I'm not saying anything that I'm saying this is 100%, and I think that's the trap, right? To be like, this is definitely happening. Someone is definitely doing this thing, and that's absolutely the truth. A lot of stuff could be happening. I think a lot of things could be happening, and I don't let them sort of divorce me from existing in a place where my actions have tangible effect on the people around me and myself, and all sorts of things. And I try to exist with an openness to a lot of things being the case that a lot of people would be very opposed to being the case.
Yes.
But all that to say, do I actually believe that a Greek god is working with me? Maybe. I think it feels like it. I'm not going to tell you that's definitely happening for sure, but it feels like it. I feel very connected. I will do candle magic and talk to Dionysus specifically, and then things will happen based on those conversations, and that feels like a very sort of direct call and response, returning the favor, if you will.
Yes.
So who knows?
Yes, I love that. I almost feel like anytime I start getting really excited about a thread, I have to start following that thread, and sometimes I find I get more results and more tangible synchronicities and occurrences happening when I do start buying into these rules and these realities. And then once I've gotten whatever I need to learn, it's like I can sort of clean the slate and be like, okay, I don't need to believe that that was caused by this, which is secretly a this, which can be defined by that. I can sort of be like,
Yeah.
I followed that thread based on what I was getting excited about. Oh, like this
Yeah.
pantheon of deities or this system of belief has led me into this really productive space or this really exciting fertile space. I keep saying fertile tonight. Fertile integrity.
That's good.
But then
That's
once
my ska band.
yes, fertile integrity, but also keeping that open mind so that I don't follow the rabbit hole into a corner or start putting walls up where it's like, oh, well, I'm sorry, you interpret what I've been interpreting as something else. Well, I don't know if I have room for that. Like, I think it's so important
Right.
to keep room and admitting fault, like being open to change,
Totally.
liminal beliefs. Did we? Yeah, I think, yeah, we talked about that. Paying it forward. Go within, sense the energy of this card. Be open to other more creative meanings, whatever comes to you. Yeah, this seems like quite a blessing to me. On
It feels very positive and it
yeah,
feels very resonant for certain.
yeah, let's go. Cool. Well, there's your reading there, Dash.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. That
Yeah,
rocks.
yeah,
That's very cool. I love these cards.
yeah. They're so pretty. Yeah, I might just draw one for myself just to see what it is. I just kind of want to
Yeah,
just.
do it. I'm also
Uh,
very,
oh, would you look
I'm
at
also
that? You
very happy to bring to you.
you and I are just a couple of people sharing cultural ideals right now, which is a theme of the
I like that.
Pleiadians. Yeah,
Okay,
love
cool.
that. Cool stuff. There's a lot of exchange here. There's a lot of like themes of
Yeah, it does feel
positive
very, yeah.
exchange. Yeah, in order to like reach a new destination, which perhaps was the journey all along.
Some might say.
Yeah. Oh my God. This is. Thank you for
Um,
allowing me to be so performative with my this
no,
show.
I don't know how else to exist. So.
Yeah. Seriously.
Do you want me to pull cards for you
I
for
would
my
love
deck
that.
that I like?
Oh my
All
God.
right, yeah.
If that's okay with you.
Yeah. So I'll talk about the deck first. So the this is the deck that we use for the show. I use it in all of my paranormal investigations, so it feels very charged for me. It feels very connected to a lot of like the
Oh no.
at the end of the world deck. So,
I'm sorry. We just cut out for just a couple seconds. Can you repeat what
oh,
it feels connected to you for?
yeah,
What it
of
feels very
course.
charged?
Definitely. Oh, Keiru, I got great news for you. You can get a dragon themed tarot deck. There's a deck called the Dragon Tarot that actually rocks. It's really cool. The whole aesthetic is like wizard airbrushed on the side of a van, dragons. The art is so sick. It's so cool. I love it very much. We did some behind the scenes pulls with it when we were filming the show that are crazy synchronous with some of the stuff that happened, including so Fox has a staff, and Fox is the one that the snakes come towards. The night before that investigation, after we got finished with our night 2 investigation, we did a pull, and Fox pulled the strength card.
Ooh.
And on the strength card in the Dragon Tarot, there is a heavily prominently featured caduceus, which again is a staff with 2 snakes coming up on it, and that was Fox's card the night before Fox lifted her staff and immediately summoned 2 snakes. So a lot of like very, especially with the strength as sort of this idea of bridging the sort of like the human built artificial world with like the natural world, and the sort of like the negotiation between these two things, the negotiation between the animal and the sort of the natural, and the sort of the artifice and buildings and what we, society that we live in, and sort of the young person holding the lion's head, the sort of the wrestling between humanity and animal, humanity and nature, that as sort of like what we're doing as we go out into the woods and try to do paranormal stuff. So yeah, Dragon Tarot, Keiru, definitely look into it. It's a sick deck. I like it a lot. It's really good. Like again, classic like airbrush wizard style art. It rules. Big fan. The deck that I'm gonna pull from right now is the again it is called the Carnival at the End of the World. It is very connected because I use it in all of our paranormal investigations. The creators of this deck, I reached out to them to be like, hey, I love your deck so much, can I use it in my paranormal investigation show about being queer? and they were like, absolutely. So they gave us their blessing to use this deck for the show. I recommend, if you are going to purchase it, I recommend getting the version that comes with the guidebook, Madame Lulu's Book of Fate. It is a real combination of like prose and poetry in the thing in each entry. The other cool thing about this deck is that it does not simply have the standard tarot cards. They have included their own creation, what they call the insubordinate arcana. So there are some additional cards that are tarot cards that are only in this deck, with like very interesting sort of like tropey characters. The sort of concept is every card in this deck is some performer or some feature at the carnival at the end of the world, and so it's a very like immediately pre-apocalypse sort of setting, and it's really cool. It's a really cool deck, and I like it very, very much. I'm gonna do a little
talk about fertile integrity, a carnival at the end of the world.
Talk about fertile integrity. I will.
Please.
I'll never stop.
Yeah.
I'll never stop talking about fertile integrity.
Yeah.
This is the part where I shuffle, and this was from my old. You want to talk about trickster from my old days, from the old version of me that Frankie definitely knew, where I would do a lot more what is referred to in polite society as con artistry. And it's not my fault, but here's the thing: if you're in a bar and someone has brought their own deck of cards to a bar that they are shuffling and doing card tricks with, and you still decide to make bets with that person, that's on you. That's on you. That's a decision that you've made. And when you buy me a drink because you've lost an unwinnable bet, that's on you. That's a decision that you made with your adult brain, and that's not my fault.
Can you do sleight of hand? Do you know how to count? Don't admit to crimes.
I used to. Yeah. No. I used to be good at sleight of hand.
That's so cool.
And I don't really know how to. It's so practice oriented, and also so much of it involves being on cocaine, a thing that I no longer do.
Yes.
So it's not. I'm not. Card tricks are fun, and there's a couple of them that I can still kind of do, but I'm not like. I would not describe myself as a person who does them well any longer.
Can you
make people buy you drinks is legal? Thank you. Can I what?
Can you flick a card with great accuracy? Like, are you good at throwing cards?
I can't flick a card with great accuracy. Let me see. Hold on. There's like a. I could still maybe do this one where you like.
Oh.
It's like a but it's better from the side if you like.
Oh.
And then it's easier if you have two of them. These, by the way, are from Salem. These are from Salem, Massachusetts, and every magic store has them, and they're like playing cards, but with witches on them. They're so funny. But the real, how you do it? It was like you want to have two. No, that's the wrong way. You want to have two of them, and then like, I forget how this one like it's like a you do like a hand to hand, and if it's the same card, it's cool. But there's two of them, right? So like, it's like a hand to hand thing.
Oh, that's so smooth.
And I used to be pretty okay at that, and it was fun. It was fun to do. It's fun to do magic. But this has the same problem as tarot, where like when you're shuffling it, you feel like you're supposed to be saying something as you're doing, and so you end up just kind of vamping in the weirdest way.
Yeah, that's very relatable.
Do you have like a question? Do you have like a thing you're thinking about, or that sort of? I could just pull cards and talk about them, but is there like, do we have like sort of a? Because for me, obviously, it's the show, right? But do you have something you're sort of like in the process of thinking about, or you're sort of like working through, or even, it doesn't have to be serious. It can be serious.
I guess, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of projects that I'm working on too, but I feel like we just delved so deeply into that, and I'm also looking at getting back into involving other people in my life in like a romantic energy and things like that. Something I haven't been open to since my early 20s, and now it's been 10 years, and it's like, okay, so I guess that's so like tarot read, but
that's fun though.
We could throw that in the soup. We could throw that in the soup.
Okay.
People in my chat want me to date. They're all like, Pander, when are you gonna get back out there? They say that every day.
Do you want to date?
I don't know. That's the whole thing. It's like, I feel like if I really wanted it to be happening, it would probably be happening.
Okay.
But maybe I'm dealing with some
You don't
trepidation.
sound very sure.
Yeah.
This feels like a good focus to me.
Okay.
If it feels like a good focus to you.
Yeah, this feels juicy because I feel normally I'm such
Okay.
an open book, but I'm like closing up right now, like
I see you sort of. You're getting
I'm
all.
a
You're getting all.
frightened
It's almost like a
cloaca.
shy. You're almost getting a little bit.
Yeah,
That's not the words that I was. That was the words in my brain. But we can
fertile.
go with frightened cloaca if that is. Uh-huh. Let's do 3. Let's do 3. 3 is a fun number. Or we can do
Okay.
4 since I did 4. Let's do 4. Let's do
Okay.
4. Okay. You know what's so funny?
What?
You know what's so like genuinely so funny? I had this thought that I did not say out loud just now. I had this thought that I didn't say out loud just now, where I was like, if we're doing romance specifically, it would be so funny if I'm like, that's fun, that's light. And in my head, I was like, it'd be so funny if we pulled the 3 of Swords. And so we did the swords in this one are arrows, and this is the 3 of Swords, and it is sort of like a Baba Yaga, which I think
I
is
love
fun.
Baba Yaga.
We're thinking about sort of witchy existence. Yeah. So the 3 of Swords up front. So here's what I think about. Actually, here's why I actually think the 3 of Swords as our first pull actually makes a lot of sense for this. People have so much attached to the 3 of Swords by way of like it's the like betrayal, heartbreak, bad, like oh it's this like scary negative one. And I was talking to my friend Christy, who's been doing like tarot for a really long time and is like very a very cool person to do tarot reads with. And she was like, it can be that, but it can also be the idea of those things. This idea of to what are we ascribing melodrama? To what are we sort of imagining as much worse than it actually is? What are the things that we sort of allow to take up this space of the 3 of Swords in our conception of things? So it doesn't necessarily mean the terrible, scary, melodramatic thing. It can mean what are we imagining as terrible and scary and melodramatic? What are the things that we are sort of maybe making into a larger, scarier thing than it has to be based on any number of factors? And so as you talk about being sort of reticent to get into dating, is there maybe like, is this maybe just sort of acknowledging the fact that we allow things to sort of exist in this space where they are larger and scarier and sort of more melodramatic? We fear betrayal. We are afraid of being stabbed in the heart. We have all of these fears around something. And so this idea of this card immediately popping out, as I was thinking, it'd be so fucking funny to pull a 3 of Swords. I almost said that. I wish I did. I wish I said it out loud because that is the card.
I believe you.
Let's see what Madame Lulu's Book of Fate has to say.
Oh, I'm gonna cry.
Let's see. The art in here, again, the art just rocks. I am a big fan of this deck. The 3 of Swords. Piercing wounds, pain, and grief. All around you is strife, quarrel, and attack. The isolation, the loneliness, the trauma of being ganged up upon. You feel you cannot endure it, but you join the ranks of the walking wounded, and in abandoning the sight of your sorrows, are able to recover after you put some distance between you and the source of your injuries.
Wow.
With that in mind, and with some of the things that I had said, like how is that sitting with you?
Oh,
How
100.
does that sort of
Yeah.
yeah.
I expand the like thought, the potential into this like big scary cloud that like prohibits me, and I'm just like, oh, it's easier to not experience that potential of rejection or betrayal or disappointment or even though that's living life, like ups and downs, and that's it just feels like a. And I knew I would be because I love being called out. I love admitting fault. But it's always hard, I guess, because it's like I am at the driver's seat for this particular life, and it's like, oh, geez, I gotta. If I want something to happen, you mean I gotta do it? Like, oh.
Yeah, you actually do got to do it.
Yeah.
I think there's something fun, very fun too, about sort of like thinking about this in terms of like the sort of the Baba Yaga imagery. I think when we think about, I think it's very funny thinking about like the sort of the girl boss archetype, right? This idea of the sort of the good for her. I feel like Baba Yaga is sort of the original,
Oh my
this
god.
original version of just sort of like powerful and sort of like, but what is the like? You live in this walking house, and the sort of like the not settling down anywhere, just sort of like the movement, and the sort of like, I think that I think there's almost like a very silly read of like, why is there fear to settle down, why is there fear to sort of like plant roots, and the sort of like this ability to move, and the sort of like magic, but also magic in a sort of a way that creates a persona or an image of you, and is that sort of the image that you want sort of
Ah,
is that the image that you want sort of perceived?
yeah. And I love
That
that
makes
they're
sense.
chicken legs and we associate chicken with like fearful behavior and
Totally.
yeah. Uh
That
are,
feels like a cool start.
I
Go ahead.
really like this start a lot. Are you in touch cahoots with Spectral Sybil? Because she has a lot to say
I
about Baba Yaga.
I have been recommended that I get in touch with Spectral Sybil, and we finally connected, and so I will be doing Spectral Sybil stream in two
Oh, that's
weeks,
very exciting.
where we will be hanging out and
She's a
talking about
pal.
the show and doing stuff. I'm
Yeah.
excited. I'm very excited.
Oh, this is cool.
Um, I think it's very funny. Can I just say that for a number of Americans,
Oh, we lost you again.
is also what they call John Wick. That's very. Oh, here I am.
For a number
Back.
of
I
Americans, and
return.
then you cut out. Sorry.
Oh, for a number of Americans, their only understanding of Baba Yaga is that's what they call John Wick. And
Ah,
so there's this fun figure with all sorts of lore and interesting fun stuff, and then also it's like, oh, but that's John Wick's name too. And it's like, sure, okay, why not? A
sure.
wild choice.
Yeah, anything to get it into the public discussion, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
There was a Hellboy appearance too, but
there
that was
was a
kind of
Hell,
like a,
there was a Hellboy. It wasn't the good Hellboy.
yeah, it was a different vibe. I loved
It was
those comics in
different.
high school. I was really big in like sneaking a Hellboy into math class.
I love the art style. The art style
Yeah,
rocks.
Mike Mignola.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, card number 2.
Please. Oh, this is so
Okay.
cool.
We have the Two of Wands in reverse, and I'll pull it
Oh,
up, here.
was the
Uh,
Three of Swords upright or
it was upright. The Three of Swords
okay?
was upright. I sort of I like to make note of when the card is in reverse, but I do not feel that guides the meaning as much as some people will. I think it
Yeah.
can. For me, a lot of times, like, a card in reverse can mean like an inversion of the meaning. It can mean the opposite, but it can also mean like, oh, the thing that this is talking about just happened, or it's in the rearview mirror.
Ah.
For me, the Two of Swords, the sort of the direction, not the Two of Swords, sorry, the directionality of a card can I think for me, I think it can mean any number of things, and so like that's a very like vibes based, like what is my immediate sort of thinking of it, and a lot of times for me, it literally it's just the very literal like, this just happened, this event that we're talking about is right in the rearview mirror, is sort of right behind you. Um,
Yes, Plant Danny, this VOD will be saved. And I'll try to edit out the choppy moments and stuff.
so my favorite tarot resource, just to go on, that does that, I think avoids most of the weird like gendered aspects of tarot too, is just Learn Tarot, learntarot.com. So I've pulled up the Learn Tarot, and we're just get some like keywords, and the keywords here are personal power, being bold, and showing originality.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's sort of like, I think, just sort of off the cuff, that feels like a very you card,
Hmm.
based on like, I mean, we were just talking about, you shared your very cool cartoon that you made with me, and I love that, and then I was just able to share that with another person, and it's just like, I think
Thank
a
you.
thing that when I think of you as, I see you as a very multidisciplinary creator, in a way that I try to be, and I aspire to be as well, where like, I don't know. I think you make the things that you're interested in. I think there is something bold, especially when we think about sort of like, when we think about the sort of like this capitalist framing of like, you got to get really good at one thing and sell that thing and do that thing. But I see you trying to do lots of things. See you, Danny. Thank you for hanging out.
Yeah, bye, Danny. Thank
Um,
you.
I see you be interested in the thing and then try to make and do that thing, and that's very cool. It feels like
Plug it.
such a sort of a fun and pure way to approach creation. And so when I think about being bold and being innovative and personal power, that's what sort of comes to mind. In the reversal here, I see, you know, some of the stuff is like, you've been doing this, right? That's sort of just the temporality of it, like you continue to do it. And there are many things that you've made as you sort of continue down this path. Like, who knows what you will make in a year? Who knows what you'll make next month? You know, and that's sort of like, that's fun. I think specifically with this art, just sort of this idea of like
Cool.
multiple things of sort of duality of sort of existing in multiple different ways, having many interests. Like the two faces are sort of looking in different directions. The sort of the focus is split, but there's still sort of like one existence and one moving forward. um I'm gonna pull up the book too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Star Pals is goated. I agree. It's delightful.
Thank
Is it
you.
delightful? Is it delightful that you've made?
Thank you for sharing it with
Of
people.
course. Let's see what this book has to say about the Two of Wands.
See you later, Steph.
Two of Wands. A world out of balance spins and wobbles, but from its collapsing trajectory, a new world will be spun. There's that new world again that we keep talking about.
Mm,
Citizens and comrades from disparate corners of the land converge, joining together with hearts beating in unison because they know another world is possible.
mm.
In dialectic will, opposing forces meet and resolve their differences. The true revolutionary is guided by a great feeling of love.
Ah,
Success will come from visions and change, so unfurl your banners proclaiming your very highest ideals.
that hits.
Yeah, talk to me about that.
Whew. Yeah. That's exactly what gets me out of bed in the morning these days. I would say is that sort of call to action of like, okay, who can I connect with today, and how are we going to collaborate in a creative way that feels like I actually am fulfilling something. Like I feel fulfillment in my
Yeah.
life, and I love that you said the true revolutionary comes from something about love. What was?
Yeah, the true. Let me pull up the exact quote.
Because I'm always like
The true
preaching stuff
revolutionary is
about that. Gu-
guided by a great feeling of love.
yes, yes, yeah. That's such a like a strong tenet for me, and I yeah. So many things are coming up, like just personally, professionally, creatively. What I look for in a potential partner or something like that.
Yeah,
Like
it definitely feels connected to
to
that.
it's almost overwhelming to try to put into words, but it just like every like this call, but also that first card of just like I'm the only one in my way, I guess.
Yeah,
I'm the only one
and
really.
even like I think because it's so funny that we started and I was like, yeah, what's your question? What's your focus? And then I lost that immediately. Yeah, because if even the direct wording of like coming together, like different people coming together from different parts of the world to sort of to make and to create revolution, to create a new world, to make new things, both in the sense of like creating a new consciousness sort of collectively, and in the sense of we are living in this world right now, we got to make it as best as we can
Mm.
because other people also live in it with us. And this thing that I keep saying of like, we can't do it alone, you need other people. You know, a community can start, I Ford the community can start as two people in
Wait, it happened again. A, a
they're
community can
trying to
start.
shut us down.
A community can
A
start as
community
two people.
with two people, and I think that I think that a lot of times people mistake the word community for the word demographic. You know,
Ah,
when people say like the queer community or the Asian community, I do not feel like I share community with Andrew Yang by virtue of being Asian. I think there is too much that keeps us apart. I do not think that I share community with a Caitlyn Jenner or a Buck Angel by virtue of being trans. I think that, you know, community and demographic are different things, and community is something that you build person to person. There is no community that exists that you're going to plug into and be like, I found it. I found my space that I exist.
ah,
And it starts with individuals that you meet and you sort of bring into your life. and it can be romantic and it can be platonic and it can be anywhere in between those things. I'm personally I do not share their taste in hats, Frankie. Good joke though. The community that you sort of I'm a very promiscuous non-monogamous person. So for me, friendship can have a lot of different way. Friendship can look like a lot of different things. Friendship can be full platonic. It can be non-romantic, sexual. It can be romantic, non-sexual. There's a lot of things, right? Friendship can look like any number of things. And so for me, like as I build community, part of that is experiencing a lot of different versions of relationship with a lot of different people, and that's the experience, and that feels very right to me. So community building to me has a tie specifically into like the romantic sort of idea that we're talking about, sort of and thinking about in this poll. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be exactly the same as it functions for you, but when I think about community building, right, when I think about it, it is involved with like meeting lots of people and finding the people that work in your life in whatever way that they work in your life.
Yeah.
I think that does sort of, it relates at least to thinking about dating, thinking about opening yourself up to a romantic experience with new people, with other people.
Oh, yeah. I'm like really overwhelmed. This is really nice.
Is that a good
A
overwhelm?
good
Yeah,
overwhelm.
cool.
It's always a good
Okay, all
overwhelm
right.
for me. Like
Okay, for sure.
if it was a bad, I would probably be like on my back, like twitching or something. And
For sure, for
yeah.
sure. Should we just pull a third card?
Yeah, it was.
Oh,
Well,
it's interesting. We've got we started with the two of wands. We went to the one of wands in reverse. So immediately after that, sort of like we're coming back. We've also now got, this is very interesting too, because we've also got a 3-2-1 immediately. That's in the this is, so we are counting down now. 3-2-1 to whatever the fourth card is.
oh my god!
Three of swords, two of wands, one of wands.
Oh my god!
So I always think of the ones, right, or the aces. I always think of the aces as sort of I always think of the aces as like a very, like, this is like the seed, right? This is the potential for the entire rest of the story for that suit. And when I think of the wands, I think of creativity. I think of sort of the creative energy, the idea of creation, the idea of making things. This is actually really interesting because on this art, sorry, I didn't pull it up. On this art, we've got a beaver.
Hi.
We've got a beaver gnawing at this tree, and the top of the tree is on fire. And so to me, there is a huge narrative in this specifically because so Jules has actually been taking a class on beavers. And like we've recently been going out in the like a specific trail that we know to find beavers,
Oh.
because there is a beaver dam, and I've heard them slapping, but I've never seen them. Beavers are a keystone species. Like the beavers are at a place where, like, if you take them out, everything else will die. Everything else will die. They're the rock that holds the entire formation together, because they're the way that they sort of create the flowing water. It makes it so forests are less likely to catch on fire. It makes it so other animals can exist. It makes it so other animals can sort of like safely exist in the space. It keeps flooding from, I'm getting all of this, the specifics I'm going into are not the good ones, but they do keep everything else alive in a really spectacular way. And they do it in based on their neurosis, or that is the theory. Beavers are neurotically activated by the sound of running water. If you show a beaver, like if a beaver can hear running water, it will pack mud and stuff over it until it can't hear it anymore. And that is the instinct that gets them to make the dams and stuff. It's a wonderful animal. Rodents rock. Rodents are so cool. They are one of my favorite rodents. So this has personal meaning to me as we think about keystone species and things that I'm just like in the process of learning. But let's and I think I have an idea where this is going to go based on the art of it. But let's from the book. Ace of Wands. The maker's marks meet creative sparks, and the results are borne aloft. It is an auspicious time for beginning an artistic project or any new collaboration between beings, matter, and the invisible. Feelings are easily kindled. Relationships are quick to warm up, and anything fed by fire and heat now stands to benefit. One may find inspiration and motivation in love, creation, or competition. How does that one sit with you?
Fertile integrity.
No, but actually, right?
Yeah. That's I I sorry, it all just went out my head. I was like right on board with everything, and then it was just like I've just never felt so like spiritually connected to a beaver before.
They
Uh
rock. They're so cool. They're
that's
so
so cool
cool.
to think about all those different things and like the idea of a keystone, but like and these connections that are starting up that are really really exciting, and then following through with them and like acknowledging them and not just sort of like letting life pass by as we
Yeah.
make more and more creative connections. And I'm reminded a lot of like how the energy I felt when I had my chart read, my like extended astrological chart read a few months ago, which was
Yeah.
just like this huge like keep going, like a big
Yeah.
like green light, like just affirmative, like you're living your life correctly and just have
Yeah.
confidence with it, basically, like, which is probably the most like reassuring thing in the world for me.
I think a thing that sort of stands out to me as very interesting here is when we were talking about bringing people together, and you were talking about how do I collaborate with new people, you feeling like you want to make stuff with new people and set up collaboration, and feeling like that's what you're trying, that's what you're meant to do, I think you said, or
Mm.
supposed to do, or something
It
like
gets me
that.
out of bed.
It gets you out of bed.
Yeah.
This idea of giving yourself the credit and the acknowledgement that doing that creates a landscape that allows art to thrive, not even just the art that you're making, but other people's art, right? And
Oh.
that's sort of the thing that we were talking about. When you make something that inspires somebody else, you sort of, you can act as a keystone species in this sort of like this environment of artistic creation and sort of the world. So when you're talking about this thing you're doing, I think acknowledging that to yourself and being like, hey, I'm actually, it's not just important to me. Like, I have the potential to make something that is important to other people, to make something that matters outside of my own interest and the interest of other people. And I know you sort of, you think a lot about like, you know, collective soul kind of stuff, right?
Mm.
Everyone sort of existing in the same, as the same, like we are all one type stuff. And that sort of can extend, right? Like when you're making something that's important to you and you are working with other people, it is sort of, it's going to be important to other people. It's going to be important to people outside of even the people you're explicitly working with.
Oh.
And I think, you know, especially like a beaver doesn't know that it's a keystone species, right? A beaver doesn't have a conception of keeping forests safe from forest fires. It doesn't have a conception of creating safe hiding areas for muskrats and other creatures where they can live and they can survive and hang out. It doesn't understand that it's doing something for the collective, but it is doing it just by virtue of doing the thing that it feels like it's supposed to be doing, by virtue of doing the thing, whether it is brought on by anxiety or brought on by discomfort. It is just doing this thing that it knows to do, and it is making a difference.
Yeah.
And so I think giving yourself that space is important, and I think giving yourself that acknowledgement that like I can just do things. You can just do things. You can make things. You can continue to sort of like follow your instincts, follow your intuition, and make things, and you can create sort of a fertile ground, right?
Mm.
A fertile
Right.
ground with integrity,
Right.
or to build any number of things, whether that thing is an artistic practice, whether that thing is a specific relationship between two beings. I think this book said any new collaboration between beings, um, that that you are creating the space for that. And I think part of that is not letting the sort of the fears and the melodrama of that first card, that three of swords,
Mm.
not letting that prevent you from doing the ground, creating the ground, laying the groundwork for whatever relationships, whether they're platonic or romantic. It seems a little bit like you're interested in getting out there and having romantic connections, even if like there are things that are sort of standing in your way, that are, you know, that you feel like there is fears and stuff standing in your way. At the very least, giving yourself the space to sort of create the ground and create the setting for it, and give yourself the space to engage with it in a way that feels natural, right?
Oh.
That feels like you're not doing something artificial. You are building something. You are building something. A beaver builds a dam, that is creation, but it is not artificial creation. It's just natural. It's part of the natural world, you know?
Yeah. Oh, that's so nice. Yeah. Thank you. I love
We've
that.
got a 3, 2, 1 countdown. I'm very excited to see what the next card is, and maybe it'll just be some other number. Who knows? But it does feel, having a 3, 2, 1 countdown does feel, the narrative flow of this feels very like it stands out to me.
Feels like a roller coaster, or obviously like a
Yeah.
ticking explosion or something.
I don't know about a ticking explosion.
In my heart.
This is interesting. We're back to 2. It is the 2 of swords this time.
Oh,
The 2
interesting.
of swords. Let's.
Wind. I know that swords are wind, and I'm a Libra, so I love being a bridge. What with all the
I'm
beaver
also a
stuff.
Libra.
Ah, yeah. Look at that. Is that
I
a
had a wild.
clown?
It does, yeah. So you'll get a lot of clown imagery in this, by virtue of sort of the carnival theme.
Yeah.
We've got the 2 of swords in reverse. I'm gonna pull up Learn Tarot once more. 2 of swords, Learn Tarot. It's interesting too, I think, just because, when we think about like the narrative flow of tarot, right? Like, we've counted down, and then it almost seems like we went sort of like back up, right? Because we started with the 3 of swords, and they got the 2 of wands and the ace of wands, and now we're back to the 2 of swords, and it's sort of like it almost creates a little loop.
Yeah.
This loop where it goes from 2 to 3.
Yeah. I know. I was expecting like a major arcana be like, oh, this is going to be the punctuation mark.
Yeah.
But now it's become
But
this
instead
like cycle, which is really intriguing.
Now it feels like a cycle, which I think is interesting. And it's interesting. So Learn Tarot, when we talk about the 2 of swords, talks about blocking emotions, avoiding the truth, and being at stalemate. And I actually think now we sort of do have a perfect little narrative circle.
Wow.
I do think we have a perfect little narrative circle of like, we have this fear of we have this fear of like scary things, melodrama, and backstabbing, and then we can start thinking about collaboration, and we can sort of build this fertile ground. And then now, but if we block that and we get into a stalemate, it takes us right back up to the 3 of swords, where we're afraid again.
Oh
We're
my
afraid
God.
of that.
Yeah.
Of that sort of blockage. You know what I mean? Like, if we, this almost, it almost tells a story of like a possible cycle that would sort of stop us from experiencing the things that we want to experience.
Yes.
Let me.
And I feel like it's so self-perpetuating, or like I have the power, we have the power to expand beyond that cycle.
But 2 of swords.
Yeah.
Oh, this is actually really funny. Hey, you know what's funny about this?
Blah.
In the pilot on our 3rd night, we pull a card, and I remember in my head at the time, I was like, this is a very negative read, and now I'm afraid for this. What is this interaction going to be? What is whatever? And then every time I've watched the pilot since, I've been like, oh, that's not actually negative at all. This is not a negative card. I was just feeling negative. I think because I was stressed out. I was stressed out by a couple of things that had happened in the shoot, a couple of things in that day, and it felt very negative to me in the moment. It felt like this is a bad read. And then when I watch it and I listen to the words, I'm like, there's nothing negative about these words. These are not negative words. It's just about choice. And this is the card that we pulled, the 2 of swords.
Oh.
I don't say it in the cut. I don't say 2 of swords. I just read the description. So I did not remember. And I have had this moment every now and then. I've been like, I should look up what card that is because I'm curious. And I've never done it. I have not known that was the card we pulled on the 3rd night until right now, in this moment just now.
Wow.
Where I started reading it and I was like, oh, that was the card. That was the card we pulled on that 3rd night.
Wow.
So I'll read it with the added sort of context that I took this as negative in the moment at the time, and I don't believe that it is negative at all. It's just sort of about choice. The 2 of swords. Which way, which one, where to? You face a choice, and your indecision grows more awkward every moment. How long can you hold out? Blind faith, intuition, or a lucky guess will guide you. There is so much to be gained if you will act. You need only change one thing for it all to be changed.
Oh my God.
Now that, in terms of this idea of this potential cycle, right, feels so relevant. Especially because you're not locked into this cycle. You are not kept, even if you end up doing the cycle again and even a time after that, you still are going to hit this place at the end of it where you have this choice. You can always step out of it. You can always break the cycle, even because it's so hard sometimes when you feel like you keep doing the same cycle. Just remembering, oh, I can step out of this, even if I do it again. Even if I step out and then I find myself in the cycle again down the road, I can step out again. You can always leave it. You can always break it. I started talking a bunch. Tell me how that sits with you.
Oh, yes. Everything you're saying is so perfect. It brings to mind immediately this image from my childhood of watching my brother jump off a small cliff into a lake. And me being like, I want to do that too. And getting to the top of the cliff and just running to the edge and stopping and being too afraid to like make that leap. It's like, I know I'm going to be safe. I've seen it work for someone else. It's going to be fun when I do it. It's just going to take a few moments of uncertainty and like a rush of excitement and like just jazzing myself up to break through that barrier. Or even the fact that I describe it as a barrier to be broken through as opposed to just a gentle choice that needs to be made. Or does it need to be made? Like, I have the option to make a choice. And it's always there, even if I feel stuck in this loop of running to the edge and walking back.
And I think even especially thinking about that in the context of this idea that it can be blind faith, it can be intuition, or it can be a lucky guess.
I love that.
This is all, and that's all paranormal stuff, right?
Yeah.
We think about intuition, we think about a lucky guess leads us down to synchronicity. Anything can take you into the space that you want to be. Anything can take you out of this cycle. Anything can take you through that, as Frankie said, a barrier or a threshold. Anything can sort of take you through it into the space that you would like to explore. We don't have to wait for the perfect sign.
Yeah.
We can sort of arbitrarily pick something and that's our sign and we can just go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that too. I love that lesson that a friend of mine asked me recently, like, how do you not get overwhelmed by synchronicity, or like when do I wait for the next signal or something? And it's like, you can create the signal. Like you can, it's all there. It's all, there's more agency to it than I think sometimes I can remember personally when I'm waiting for the next like signal to go ahead. It's like, well, why don't I just take a step forward in whatever way that shows itself? Yeah.
This feels like I'm glad we picked 4 because this feels like a very like feels like a full like contained reading to me in a way that I like. Yeah. I'll say the same thing as when I go do paranormal stuff. I'm always like, I hope something spooky happens. For this I was like, I hope this makes sense. That's for tarot for me. I was like, I hope this makes sense, especially if I'm doing like if I'm pulling cards for someone else. And
100%.
This one I'm pleased to say makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. I'm really grateful. I'm glad that I opened up a little bit about the intention, so it wasn't just like, oh, productivity. Like, I don't know. Isn't it cool that we're all working on stuff? Like, thank you for.
It's always so funny to me when someone tries to do a read and just kind of like fundamentally misunderstands like your whole deal. And they're like, let's talk about your career. And I'm like, I guess. All right, sure.
Yeah.
I guess we can talk about that. But yeah, no, thank you for giving us intent. Thank you for giving us direction.
Well, did you have anything specific? And I could pull one more card in case you had some specific subject.
Oh, I mean, you can if you want. That felt very, I don't know, that felt very complete to me. That felt very resonant. Yeah, I mean, you can if you want to, but I felt like very. Yeah. It made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, well, that's good. I don't need to mess with it too much. I just wanted to give that option. In case.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Oh.
I'm glad we both got to pull cards for each other. That's very cute and fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of very cute and fun, my guest today is Kwiatkowski.
Thank you.
Very cute and fun person. Wow, we are at 3:33 on the time. That's, there's significance. Blah 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 goes without saying.
I don't know angel numbers at all. Tell me about the. Do you have a significance off the top that 333?
Only my own personal relationship with numbers. I love to. I've ever since I was little, I've had certain lucky number, like kind of like what you described with 4 on Steve Berg's podcast and stuff. Like I have that with 18 and variations of that, like 118, which is very fun. It's 2 parallel lines and then infinity. Like I'm really obsessed. As an early child, that number and variations of that number would show up a lot. And then just like all the digits between 1 and 9, 0 and 9, so to speak. Like I have different associations with and stuff. But what was what we? 333. Yeah.
What is your association with 3?
3 is so intense. 3 is so like magical. Like there's geometrical things, there's religious things, there's like sturdy polarity. I think the biggest thing for me is my lifelong obsession with exploring, breaking down, building back up binaries. Positive, negative. There's always something else. There's always something that bridges them. There's something that sort of encompasses them, or at least 3. When it comes to yes, no, well, maybe, and then there's so many things that branch out from that, and that I love that mechanism. So
the minimum number of things you need to balance a thing, right?
Right. That came up recently in something I was watching. And then of course 3 3.
Have fun with your tomatoes, CJ. Thank you for hanging out.
Yeah. Thank you all for hanging out. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about or plug or ask me, or I'm
thinking. I feel like we
I'm so interesting that I just need you to. This is your last chance. You are so interesting. This has been so fun.
This has been really, really fun.
Yeah.
This has been really, really fun. I don't know. This feels like I don't know. Getting to pull cards for each other just feels very collaborative in such a fun way. It is the way that I like to experience paranormal stuff, is like with cool people, you know. And I think that is so much of it. That's one of the things I say in our beginner's guide. And Liminal presents a beginner's guide to ghost hunting. One of the things that I talk about, I'll find the quote. Gather some friends you want to make contact with the unknown. You can definitely ghost hunt on your own, but it's more fun sharing the experience with your pals. And I think that's so much of it. Is all of this is more fun when you're doing it with other people. And I think there's the very practical, like other perspectives, other ideas. I think that understanding, I think when you pull from a deck that has personal significance and meaning to you, and you can tell me why these cards sort of are resonant both in the book and to you specifically, and that context to help me understand why, helps me understand what a card could mean to me, that it just expands the experience so much. So, if we can pull from this specific tarot deck that I like because I love the art and I like it, and I can say, Jules is taking a class about beavers right now, so let me tell you some beaver facts that I know.
So cool.
That. Just like everything is so specific, everything is so keyed into an idiosyncratic understanding of reality and existence, and I think that is what makes magic very, very cool and makes it fun to do with people like you who have a lot of varied interests and ideas. Like it's what people bring to the experience. That I've said a lot. It's the deck of cards as a pile of cardboard is not where the magic comes from. The magic comes from the people who are putting the magic in the deck of cards. Hey, great question, Frankie. Where do people get this guide? You can get a Liminal presents a beginner's guide to ghost hunting by pledging to our Seed and Spark.
That's right.
This is the only way to get this beginner's guide to ghost hunting. And if you'll notice, I've put so Jules did all the art. Jules is a great artist and does all the art for stuff like this. So this is a ghost sort of inspired by the original ghost sprite from Lavender Tower in Pokemon Red and Blue.
Oh,
that is the inspiration for this ghosty. We got to Hopkinsville's Goblin here, obviously. Another Pokemon connection, as the Hopkinsville Goblin is the inspiration for Sableye, one of my favorite Pokemon, a dark and ghost type Pokemon, who is visually inspired by the Hopkinsville Goblin. We've got, very obviously, the Mothman. Love that guy. I love his thing. Love his perfectly sculpted ass and his statue. And then we've got, and here's the thing, one of the most underrated cryptids, and that is the Flatwoods Monster.
Yes.
I love the Flatwoods Monster. I think she gets overlooked a lot based on sharing West Virginia with Mothman. Um, but I'll say I think there's a fascinating thing to me about the Flatwoods Monster is all the various parts of it. You've got Bigfoot sightings in the area right around immediately after. You've got orbs in the sky, obviously. But mostly, and this is the thing that may or may not have guided us to pick the Flatwoods Monster for one of the episodes that I would like to shoot in our show. One of the rare cryptids that is always gendered female. Most cryptids sort of get defaulted to man, male, he, him being. But the Flatwoods Monster is almost always talked about female. And I think that's really fascinating. And I think it's a really interesting, like, what makes that the case? Why is this cryptid in terms of like the cultural conception of it? Why is this gendered in this way? And I also I love her design. I love the Flatwoods Monster. Just a really unique design amongst cryptids.
Initially, it makes me think of the description and the drawings and things like that, and how our society would be like, well, that's a dress, that's a skirt, and
gotta be a girl.
This headdress, yeah, exactly, and also, of course, Patty from the Patterson-Gimlin film very famously has pendulous breasts. Shout-outs to pendulous breasts and Sasquatch.
And in spite of that, though, when we think about Bigfoot, when people talk about Bigfoot, Bigfoot almost always gets he/him'd, even though one of the most sort of like the most visualized, one of the, like the image of Bigfoot that exists in so many people's brains when they think of Bigfoot is the Patterson-Gimlin one,
right?
Which but in spite of that, we gender Bigfoot male sort of culturally,
right?
Which is fascinating, also, I think.
Yes, very much so.
I have a question, Jin. You said she keeps coming up on the double eyes emoji now. The Flatwoods Monster keeps coming up for you? In what context? And please tell me about it.
Sure.
Oh, you don't have to. Don't feel like you're on the spot. Yeah, sick. Do you have like a? Do you have a? Can I ask about that? I understand you probably can't type too many things at once because Twitch gets mad at you.
Please
type a lot of
type faster. This is very exciting.
It is very exciting.
We're
also don't let me keep you. I know we've been on here for a minute.
No. This is nice. This is a very nice like outro vibe, I think. Watching
Interesting. Okay, so you watched the Newkirk stream and then it came up in a book. Yeah, that's cool. Well, maybe do some research, and then when we get to our Flatwoods Monster episode, we could reach out and we could talk about it. See what you got to think. Cool. You know?
Oh yeah, the new Haunted Objects dropped yesterday. Well,
oh yeah, we'll discuss. Jen will discuss the Flatwoods Monster in the future. Yeah, thank you for hanging out, Karu. I'm glad that you're able to hang out with us again. It was a delight to meet you last weekend at Euphoria.
Yeah,
the Albany, New York.
It's a really good title.
Euphoria. A lot of furry cons will pick good titles, and then some of them not. I would say it's on the whole it's better. It's a better naming conventions than a lot of things.
There's one called On the Whole.
No. I'm saying just general, like generally. I wish. A lot of times when people, so my basis for bad names has always been comedy clubs. There's a comedy club in Sunnyvale, California called Rooster T. Feathers. Why is it called that? Couldn't tell you. But their slogan is silly name, serious comedy, which also means nothing. Is nothing. Serious comedy, what could that possibly mean? Now, this isn't the worst of the names of comedy clubs that I have worked at. The other one, well, Frankie, what's my second one? What's my next one I'm going to say? What's my next one? I almost said this one first, so maybe you were going to be... Yeah, you were right, though. I did say Rooster first. But I always bring it up in the context of maybe the worst named comedy club I've ever worked at, which is in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and it is called Dr. Grins. Now, here's why Dr. Grins is the worst one. Because on the face of it, when you hear it, you're like, oh, I guess that makes sense. But then you think about it for even 10 seconds. Why a doctor? Why grin? Here's my thing. If you're doing stand-up comedy and the reaction is grins, you're doing a bad job. You know what I mean? So why is it a doctor who is kind of amused, not laughing? It's not Doctor Laughs. You could have named it Doctor. You know what I mean? You could call it Doctor Laughs, but you haven't. They've called it Doctor Grins. It's Doctor Grins in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and it's a very oh good. Okay, yeah. See, but I would even describe that as a smile. You know, I would describe that as a smile. Dr. Smiles is not better than Dr. Grins.
It sounds like a
Dr.
dentist.
Smiles, huh?
It's a dentist's name. Dr. Smile.
This should be a dentist. Well, Dr. Smiles sounds like a monster that kills you in a low budget horror film.
Yeah.
Is Dr. Smiles to me, you know? But Dr. Grins, what could it possibly mean, and why is this comedy club called it? Yeah, horror dentist.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jen. Dr. Grins. Dr. Grins in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And the first time I went and worked there, comedy clubs will often put up pictures of the headliners who worked there on the wall. And the first time I went there, I was looking at those, and one of the person's name was just an anti-Asian slur. That is
Oh,
the name that this person gets billed as and booked as, and he also was a voice on the original Dragon Ball Z. So it all ties back together.
wow.
I'm not going to say it because it's a slur, and I'm not going to say a slur on your stream.
Yeah.
Even though arguably, as an Asian person, I probably could. Still don't feel like it.
That was so funny. We started to
it's
drop
funny that
frames as you entertain the idea of saying the slur.
I wasn't gonna. At no point. The Zetas don't want me to say a slur.
All right. They're like,
Not really.
you've done so well so far. Well, hell, on that note, I'm very bad at goodbyes.
It's okay. Hey, this has been so much fun.
Yeah.
I've had a really. I'll say it.
Was it?
I've had
Was it
a
him?
really. Is it? I don't think it was Christopher Sabat. I don't think. Is it Christopher?
He did like
Sabat?
all the
Oh.
voices. The tough guys. Tough guy voices.
Nope, it wasn't him. That wasn't his name. Oh, he looks like he is. Okay, he is Asian. Okay. His name is Mark Britton. Britten, and then it also will say what his stage name is. It's not ideal. Mark Britton. And you can look that up at your own pace,
Wow.
folks.
Well, you learn something new every day.
I've had so much fun.
Yeah,
I
me too.
I had a lot of fun. I appreciate the read you did very much, and
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun pulling cards for you.
Yeah.
This is really fun. This is fun and meaningful and silly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me talk about the show.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Thank you for putting your heart and soul into this like extremely cool thing, to put it simply. Like,
I appreciate it.
I want everyone in the
I
chat
just-
to watch it, support it.
Your enthusiasm for the show is very meaningful to me, and I really appreciate that.
It's awesome, and I'm really excited. I know that it's a lot of work, but I'm really excited to see all of your promotional interviews and stuff as it rolls out. And thank you for making this such a fun, meaningful experience. I'm really grateful for the read and your words and your energy.
I'm grateful for the space that you've created. I'm grateful for to pull it all together. I'm grateful for the fertile, the space like you have created. You made the platform on which this conversation is happening, and that's cool, and I appreciate it. I appreciate you. This has been very, very nice, and I love this space that you have created and this cool chat that you have cultivated and all the things around this as a very fun place to come and talk about stuff that is meaningful to me. Like you made a space that is a cool spot to share meaningful things in a way that feels safe, in a way that feels held, in a way that feels supported. It's very sweet. It's very sweet, and it's cool, and I appreciate this thing that you have created.
Thank you so much for saying that. I'm gonna go research beavers. I'm gonna Google
Hell yeah.
beavers and see what happens.
We might have gotten you a persona out of this. That could
Yeah, hey, oh my god, finally.
a persona out of
Yeah.
this stream.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna call it there. I'm not gonna raid out or anything. This is just such a good, positive experience. I can't wait to talk to you again. I love sharing ideas, late night DMs, and so forth.
Yeah,
You're a
we
wonderful,
talk about
hilarious.
a lot of cool magic stuff, and it's a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
yeah. And thank you to the chat, everybody. Please support Liminal. Support your
Yeah.
local weirdos.
Support your local weirdos and get out there and do weird stuff yourself because it's
Yes.
cool and it makes your life more interesting.
Yes. All right.
Yeah, thank you, chat. If you haven't watched the show, give it a watch and let us know what you think in the comments.
Yeah, it's real good. Say good things. Say bad things. Don't. I need to stop streaming.
Well,
Wait.
wait.
You're gonna do some weird stuff? Love to hear it, Heltran. Happy
like
birthday to
that.
Heltran.
Happy birthday, Helltran. I didn't even know.
Yeah, it was her birthday a
Kept
couple
that
days
from
ago.
me.
We have to all shove in our happy birthdays to Heltran before.
Happy birthday, Helltran.
Yes. And on that note,
Everybody. Okay.
I'm gonna say, and on that note, at least 4 more times.
And on that note.
And on that note, boy, we've really had a lot of fun today, haven't we?
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun.
Okay, I love you all. I love you, Dash. Thank you for being here.
Love you too. Thank you for having me.
And on that, okay.
Uh-huh.